This gripping and unusual story begins in the center of a city psychiatric hospital. Ward number 666 contains a real devil named Archie. This evening, he asked his friend Ronald to tie him up with iron wire in order to conduct an experiment. These two young people are close friends who have long since gone crazy and decided to somehow cheer up their miserable lives. Now Archie hopes that he will be shocked very strongly, and this will help him learn incredible skills. I have never heard anything more absurd in my life, which is why this story is so interesting to watch. Within seconds, Archie was in incredible pain, screaming so loudly that it sounded like they were filming Alien vs. Predator. An alarm immediately sounded throughout all the wards. The doctors woke up and tried to understand what was happening here. Oddly enough, no one was surprised. Everyone knew who was behind this chaos. These two inseparable friends are constantly involved in critical situations, as if they were a magnet for disaster. Ronald can't leave his friend. He told the doctors that he would go to the hospital with him. Archie is now between life and death, and they are taking him to intensive care to try to save him. The director of the mental hospital is Mr. Donald. He is already accustomed to such situations. Of course, when you work in this position for more than 10 years, you have long since become accustomed to crazy people who see the world differently. In this hospital, every day you can find people who believe that the earth is square, or who are absolutely convinced that they can control time. Mr. Donald has long been understanding of such people and does not demand adequate behavior from them. The hospital's most dangerous patients are inseparable friends, Archie and Ronald. If they weren't there, life in the hospital would be much calmer and easier. It is about them that today's story is written. You have never heard anything like it. Believe me, it will be a loud explosion of emotions. In parallel with these events, a dangerous situation occurred in a forested area outside the city. It is unclear where 7th-level monsters appeared from and began attacking local residents. A frantic panic ensued, as such incidents usually end with a large number of victims. The awakened hunters are already heading to the scene of the incident to settle things. Meanwhile, some unknown system left the body of one of the deceased awakened ones. This system is now trying to find a new organism for itself, and it looks like that organism may be a young guy named Archie. He had just opened his eyes in intensive care and realized that he was still alive, despite the powerful electric shock. Now we need to deviate a little from these events to get to know the main character, who can truly be called a madman. Since childhood, he surprised his mother with his unusual behavior and constantly came up with problems for himself. All his life, Archie has been absolutely convinced that through pain he can improve his characteristics and become stronger. This led to him being labeled as a psychopath after reaching the age of 19. Now he lives in a mental hospital with his best friend and still manages to have fun. Doctors have brought this guy back from hell, but not for long, because he loves being between life and death. He just asked his friend to start the acupuncture process in order to release some of his mana. Of course, these simpletons don't understand what they're doing. They imagine themselves to be hunters, but in reality, they're just ordinary psychos. Doctors are already tired of these guys because they have to be constantly operated on and saved after failed experiments. The next morning, the director of the mental hospital was in his office. He hoped that Archie was finally dead and now he could get rid of this psycho. It turned out that Archie had once again survived death and would soon return to his beloved ward. Fred is the deputy director of the hospital and is in charge of the intensive care unit, where Archie and Ronald are regularly admitted. He's already tired of these guys and asks the director to finally put some poison in their bowl of soup. If the hospital can get rid of these problematic patients, life will finally get better for absolutely all doctors. This cannot continue any longer because, due to the constant operations, some surgeons have already written a resignation report because they cannot cope with the volume of work. It is important to remember that most doctors are ordinary people. They are not used to dealing with such psychos who like to hurt themselves. That is why working in a psychiatric hospital is a real test for everyone. While the surgeon tries to calm down a little, strange things happen to our main character. A powerful system has chosen him as its new target, and now Archie must prepare for changes throughout his entire body. At the same time, news was broadcast on TV that the situation with the crazy monsters had stabilized. Unfortunately, some of the monsters managed to escape and are now hiding among the city blocks. After the operation was successfully completed, Fred ordered the patient to be immediately sent back to the mental hospital. He does it personally because he can no longer tolerate the madmen in his hospital. Mr. Donald hopes every morning that Archie won't be returned to him today. There's bad news for him because an ambulance just arrived with this madman. Donald pretends not to care, but there's a serious struggle going on inside him right now. He would gladly kill this guy personally to get rid of his constant problems. Fred immediately got down on his knees and said that he refused to admit Archie into intensive care. This can't go on any longer. The hospital has to stop this psychopath and not give him the opportunity to hurt himself anymore. After these words, he thanked the director for his cooperation and said that he hoped that they would never see each other again. Fred doesn't want to deal with these lunatics. He wants to treat normal people with normal problems. Mentally ill people are absolutely of no use to anyone. The whole world turns away from them, and no one wants to give them a helping hand. Meanwhile, Archie doesn't care about everything that's happening. He already feels some unknown force that is awakening in his consciousness. Ronald didn't get the system's skills, but he still considers himself a god who can change the world. The director knows that this time he must do everything possible to ensure that these two hooligans do not cause any more problems. A few minutes later, they were tied up and laid on the bed, Ronald panicking and Archie calmly cultivating. Our hero felt incredible, it seemed to him, that he had just learned Zen and turned into an angel from heaven. After this, he turned to his friend and said that the electrical therapy had been successful. They must definitely build on their success and repeat the operation the next day. Meanwhile, the director and the other doctors were very surprised by the quiet behavior of the patients. The hell room is usually very loud, but today Archie and Ronald are surprisingly quiet. We have already talked about the fact that some monsters escaped from the forest and ended up in the urban environment. This means that every ordinary citizen can become a snack for a terrible monster. This is exactly what happens when there are no hunters around to protect civilians. At such moments, the blood runs cold, fear paralyzes the whole body, and the heart breaks with excitement. The next morning, Archie and Ronald woke up with the first rays of the sun. As soon as Archie opened his eyes, he immediately felt incredible strength. He realized that he could easily free himself from all these chains. His body has reached a new stage of evolution. Now he is like Giga Chad, who controls reality. Someone needs to advise this guy to get dressed because he might embarrass the patients. Ronald had never seen such muscular abs. At first, he didn't even believe that all this was happening in reality. His friend really did turn into Apollo, but that doesn't mean he can continue to walk around the hospital naked. One of the hospital employees, who was responsible for electricity, was calmly doing his job. For a second, he felt a breath near his back and thought that he was about to turn into a snack for monsters. This guy had already heard about the monsters that had escaped from the forest, and now he mentally said goodbye to life. In fact, it's much worse because the madman Ronald just touched his back. It's best not to mess around with Ronald because rumor has it that his touch is enough to drive a person crazy. Now it's time for a short lecture on the strongest creatures in this story. As it has already become clear, here we will have to see monsters that have made serious progress. These monsters are inferior to hunters who professionally wield their outstanding abilities. The most terrifying creatures in this story are the patients from room 666, whom we have already met. The electrician realized that the patient in front of him was from this very ward. Fear immediately appeared in his eyes. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead, and his heart almost burst from excitement. In fact, patients don't intend to hurt him. They just need to grab a few tools. They said they wanted to do some interesting experiments and have some fun in their free time. The electrician didn't even have time to realize how the hammer had disappeared from his suitcase. He decided to walk down the corridor and check what exactly these two madmen were doing. It wasn't hard to guess that the best friends were doing what they loved, which was hurting each other. Ronald has long since become a professional butcher, who uses pain to try to make a deity out of his friend. The electrician was not prepared for such a reality. There is no doubt that today he will write a resignation report. Within a few seconds, he was acting like a psycho and was constantly repeating the story about the two killers. If he continues to behave like this, he will become a full-fledged client of this hospital. When he returned to the experiment room, he saw that there was no more blood and nothing supernatural was happening here. These two little devils pretended to be angels, but no one would believe them anyway. The electrician felt uncomfortable, and Mr. Donald looked at him as if he was a real psychopath. Now it is unlikely that anyone will believe this man, although we know that all this time he was telling the truth. The experienced hospital director knows that Archie is indeed a man who cannot be trusted. He ordered him to immediately return the electrician's hammer and stop playing the role of the perfect and obedient boy. At first, everyone was very surprised because a very large object rose up in Archie's pants. Everyone around felt much better when it turned out that it was a hammer, and not at all what everyone thought. Apparently, this hospital houses not only psychos, but also perverts, who also need to have their heads examined. A few more hours passed. Archie gradually got used to his new skills and strength. The news reported that the large monster could become a problem for society, since it has not yet been found. An elite 4 hunters set out to find the monster, and now the entire country is watching to see how it all ends. It soon became clear that the government had discovered monsters in one of the city's districts, and residents were asked not to leave their homes. It seems that the hunters are ready to go in search of the monster and give it real hell on Earth. There are 4 people with the second level of strength gathered here, which is why Maria is confident that they will be able to kill the monster without any problems. She and her team prepared for battle, even though they were hardly mature at that age. Before us are children who have gained incredible power through special talents. They awakened possibilities that an ordinary person from the provinces could only dream of. After dinner, Archie and his friend returned to the room to rest a little before new experiments. These guys always have fun together, but very soon their lives will change, especially Archie's life. The system has just completed its countdown and allowed its owner to enter the imaginary world. Now he gets the ability to stop time, but to do this, he will have to complete his mission in the imaginary world. The goal of the mission is to help the founder's heirs, and to do this, you'll have to try hard. In the morning, Archie opened his eyes and saw that he was in a completely different room. It seemed like he had turned into a pink princess. He felt like a completely different person, and for several minutes it seemed to him that it was just a dream. Then our hero began to understand that he really woke up in the body of another person. But how is this possible? Soon a woman ran into the room and began calling our hero Albert. It turns out that he moved into the body of a guy who likes to wear pink clothes. It looks like he's even more of a psycho than Archie. Our hero decided to play this game, put on normal clothes, and left the room to have breakfast. He had never felt so hungry before, and for a while he turned into a pig, destroying everything in his path. Apparently, this woman is not used to such behavior from her son. Now she will have to learn a new reality. After this, Archie calmly went to school and began to explore the outside world in which he found himself thanks to the system. He realized that he was playing the role of another person and had to gradually learn the conditions of the mission and not stand out from society. At first, he calmly looked around and studied everything that was happening here. On the bus, he even had to give up his seat to a beautiful girl, who immediately thanked her prince. Also, here's Albert's classmate. This bully is called John, and he constantly creates problems for everyone he knows. Already now, Archie understands that he must save his character from constant problems at school, because this is the main objective of the mission. Albert is the main target of local hooligans. Because of this, his life is filled with suffering, pain, and anxiety. Now it's time to fix all this, and to do that, we'll have to show who the real crazy one is. It seemed that the most interesting thing was about to begin, and that is exactly what happened. A wounded man ran onto the bus and asked the driver to speed up immediately because a killer was chasing him. A man with knives allegedly escaped from a mental hospital in order to kill everyone who gets in his way. John immediately wet his pants and started calling his mom for help. It's immediately obvious that he's a bully only when he's dealing with weak and defenseless children. Only the real psychopath remained calm. He immediately declared that the person in front of him was not a murderer at all, but just a domestic chicken. The psychopath paid no attention to him. He raised his knife in order to finally kill the first little victim. Within a second, blood was spilled and everyone around screamed as if the apocalypse had happened. John was ready to call his mother and ask her to send him a new batch of diapers. In fact, the little girl remained alive. Archie put his hand in time and blocked the blow at the cost of his own health. It all looked extremely creepy. These are the kinds of situations that happen when two psychopaths meet. The killer looked at this schoolboy and felt doubts begin to grow in his soul. he just realized that he was not crazy at all. The real psycho was standing right in front of him. Within a few minutes, the bus stopped, the police arrived, and the situation was quickly brought under control. The psychopathic killer cried and asked to be saved immediately. Now he considers himself a victim. For a while, Archie even wanted to chop it up into small pieces to make his signature barbecue after school. Now it's time to return to the conversation with the local hooligan, who still hasn't recovered from the stress he experienced. John thought he was a tough guy. That was until he met our madman. Now he will clearly reconsider his behavior and will never again pester Albert, whom he had considered a weakling until now. The situation quickly stabilized. Now the psycho killer will not bother anyone, because he will be placed in the most secure hospital in the city. He is still in an unstable state. Every time he sees Archie, he goes crazy and repeats that he must take revenge. One of the police officers praised Archie and called him a hero, thanks to whom innocent lives were saved. Archie ignored him and said that he needed to hurry to school, otherwise there was no point in all this. Soon he finally reached the high school where he was supposed to spend the whole day. A true friend always remembers his brother when he feels lonely. Archie is sure that if Ronald were here now, he would turn into a wonderful professor who would help little children become stronger. Perhaps for the first time in a long time, he will have to go his own way, without the support of his crazy comrade. It's time for a lesson. It seems this school allows free attendance. Within a few seconds, Archie felt very lonely and began to remember his childhood. It was then that the school teacher spoke to his mother for the first time about Archie's strange behavior. From that moment on, they began to go to the hospital frequently, and soon Archie was declared a psychopath. These reflections on the past were interrupted by one impudent girl who allows herself to do whatever she wants. Her name is Bella, and she just walked up to the weakest student in the class and stuck a pen into his hand. It was clear that there was nothing strange about this. Before, she had allowed herself to behave on a much worse scale. Albert always reacted the same way. He cried and asked to stop. But today, everything changed. This guy doesn't feel any pain and doesn't even react to all her attempts. Then he even started smiling, as if he liked it when someone put a pencil in his hand. Bella thought about putting the pencil somewhere else, but then realized that it was better not to mess with this guy. Today, some strange things happened to him. He changed and is no longer an easy prey for an experienced panther. Bella had never looked so scared. That's what happens to girls who think they're the queens of the world. Meanwhile, Arnold calmed his friend John and said that he would help him avenge the insult. Bella is John's girlfriend, but he can't stand up for her because he doesn't want to get involved with a real psychopath. Arnold promised that he would definitely beat up the impudent nerd right after school. Apparently, when he said this, he didn't think at all that the impudent botanist could strike first. John immediately pretended as if he had met his best friend. He stood up, smiled, and immediately shook his hand. Arnold never understood why his best friend began to fear the nerd, because before they constantly bullied all the weaklings in school. Soon the teacher came into the classroom and ordered all those stupid worms to shut up. This woman is famous for her nasty character, and everyone knows that it is better not to joke with her. She had just ordered Albert to demonstrate how well he had done his homework. The main character of this story calmly stood up and declared that he had not studied anything and had been playing the console at home until nightfall. No one here expected such impudent behavior because usually everyone tries to look perfect in front of this teacher so as not to anger her in any way. The teacher wanted to start screaming, then she felt this guy's incredible aura. And for the first time in her life, uncertainty appeared in her heart. After a few seconds, she allowed him to sit down and continued the lesson. Everyone around was shocked and could not believe their eyes. Nothing like this had ever happened before, so the incident was even discussed during recess. Arnold decided to be the first to approach Albert, who was acting too strangely today. He wants to know what this guy did to his friend and the witch who is called the school teacher. Two strange events made Arnold angry. He doesn't like it when things happen that he doesn't understand. If Albert doesn't explain to him right now everything that happened, he will break his nose and several fingers. Our hero didn't pay any attention to this bully. He was playing with the socket and decided to insert the key into it. Of course, this psychopath understood that he was about to be electrocuted, but that didn't stop him at all. Thanks to the new system, any pain makes Archie stronger and more powerful. Now what he did before really works. At that moment, John put his hand on this guy, so he felt incredible pain that he will never forget. Another guy came up to them to settle the conflict, but he also became a victim of electricity. In less than a few minutes, almost the entire class was in an electric ecstasy, all because of one single student. Only when Archie felt that everyone around him was enjoying the performance did he take the key out of the socket. He felt great, although all the other guys lost consciousness due to pain shock. The next teacher burst into the classroom and looked around in confusion, not understanding what was going on here. Absolutely all the students were lying around like dead penguins, and the smell of fried meat could be smelled in the classroom. I had to urgently call an ambulance and ask them to send at least several ambulances to the school. All this happened less than 2 hours after a psychopath named Archie arrived at school, which is what I call the smell of change. Meanwhile, the main psychopath was not at all nervous and calmly enjoyed what he had done. He is not at all embarrassed by these events. On the contrary, he enjoys being the center of attention. After school, Archie was about to go home, but he heard a soft, squeaky voice calling him to it. He realized that it was a little girl who was shyly looking at the floor and trying to convey something to him. Archie noticed that she was holding some kind of envelope in her hand, which was most likely addressed specifically to him. The romantic scene failed because there are too many bullies in this school who come and ruin the lives of ordinary people. Michael and his partners decided to spoil the mood of all the students again, and he does it very well. He is always looking for the weak in order to have a little fun and stroke his bruised ego. Archie decided to intervene and immediately took the envelope. He would not like such antics. It's not hard to guess that a conflict is brewing now. Let's see what happens when another hooligan meets a psycho. It's immediately obvious that Michael is not used to being humiliated because he is the one who was used to dunking nerds' heads in the toilet. He's going to do the same thing to this arrogant boy who thinks he's a god. Michael doesn't even suspect that all his actions do not frighten Archie at all, because this guy is simply not afraid of anything. He is not only fearless, he does not even feel pain, so he is impossible to defeat. Little Catherine fell to her knees in fear and began to scream. It was immediately obvious that her psyche was unstable. John is also here, who has long dreamed of taking revenge for everything that happened in class. These worms don't understand that in front of them is a real madman who can mow down an entire tree with one blow. That's exactly what happened. The system filled Archie with incredible power, which he can now use in real life. The bullies have officially turned into scared bunnies who don't want to cause Archie any more problems. The local schoolgirls realized that they couldn't do without the help of a senior student who had to intervene in the conflict. They asked the older guy to come to the rescue and reported that a local loser named Albert had once again become a target for sharks. When they all arrived at the scene, they couldn't believe their eyes. In fact, it is Albert who bullies the bullies and makes them feel like small fry. Now, Michael doesn't want to cause any more trouble. The only thing he needs is an extra diaper, because fear caused an unpleasant incident. After Archie calmed the bullies down, he walked up to Catherine and handed her that same pink envelope. The girl was incredibly embarrassed. She said that the letter belonged to Albert, and she wanted him to become her boyfriend. The cold-blooded psycho replied that he was not interested. From the outside, it seemed that he preferred boys. In fact, Archie believes that his main goal is to train to become the strongest man in the world. His words made Catherine burst into tears, but of course our hero didn't care because he was a mentally ill sociopath. Today he broke his first heart. In the future, this guy will repeat such mistakes more than once. The real Albert loves charming things and is a very weak boy. Everyone around him humiliates him and calls him gay. Catherine thinks he is not like all the other smelly boys. She sees him as a special guy with subtle feelings and a sparkle in his eyes. Albert loves this girl very much. He dreams of one day confessing his love to her and proposing to her. For a long time, he dreamed of finally becoming her boyfriend and starting to live a full life. Archie entered his body and destroyed absolutely all the dreams of an ordinary guy. First love very often leads to a broken heart. Today's story is no exception to the rule. Now it's worth stopping for a while and stepping aside a little. Let's see what's happening in the central hospital of the city. A huge number of students suffered from electric shock, and now they consider themselves lucky to have survived in such hellish conditions. The doctor will have to explain to each of these students that if they play such games again, they will end up in the cemetery. It was only by a miracle that the chief doctor managed to save these scoundrels. No one will give them a second chance like that. All the injured students felt incredibly tired and were in constant pain throughout their bodies. When they felt a little better, everyone around immediately began to discuss the situation that had happened. Of course, at first, everyone was sure that Albert had died, because he was not among the clinic's patients. The students were even a little upset. This guy seemed too weak to them, but now they felt a little sorry for him. They had to come to terms with the idea that now they would have no one to bully at school and would have to find another target for bullying. A few seconds later, someone knocked on the door of the ward, and the students thought that the doctor had come to discharge them from the hospital. A second later, the door opened, and they saw in front of them the face of an angel with the eyes of the devil. Everyone around was shocked. The man who was supposed to die came here to visit them. There wasn't a single scratch on him, and yet he was the first to receive an electric shock, meaning he should have turned to ashes and gone to the local cemetery. Archie acted as if nothing had happened. In fact, he didn't even think about whether he looked weird because he didn't care at all. He came to bring his classmates some tasty food and drinks, to lift their spirits and to cheer them up a little. This is all part of the plan because he needs to complete the mission and make sure that none of these hooligans ever hurt Albert again. He also said that now they don't have to be afraid of high school students because he has resolved all the conflicts at school. At first, no one believed this madman, but then the students went on school social networks and swallowed their tongues in surprise. It's hard to believe, but Albert actually punished the biggest bully in the entire school, and now even the teachers know about it. In just one day, a weakling who looked like a girl turned into the hero of his school. Miracles really do happen. The next morning, Archie was still in the hospital next to his friends and had no idea what was happening around him. An ordinary man fell seriously ill, but fate had another blow in store for him. His dissatisfied wife came to him in the hospital and threw a petition for a divorce at him. She wasn't shy and came here with her new boyfriend. It's immediately obvious that her upbringing is at the lowest level. They lived together for more than 10 years, but the wife could not wait until her husband finally died to find herself a new lover. It is very difficult to return to normal life after such incidents, which is why this guy could not stand it and decided to part with his life. Somehow this story will definitely touch our hero, but now we need to take a break for a moment. During that night, Archie became closer to his comrades, and now he opened up to them from a different angle. He opened the window to air the room a little and didn't even notice Superman flying. I had to hint to this guy to open his eyes and finally see what was going on. At the last moment, Archie reacted and even managed to grab the suicide bomber flying above him. Actually, this man wanted a better life, but Archie felt that he had the right to interfere in his fate. He dragged him back to the hospital to understand why he wanted to commit suicide. Within seconds, all the students in the room heard the sad story of this guy. Archie advised him to always cry at difficult moments in life, and then calmly solve problems. Looks like this guy needed his own therapist, but ended up getting help from some crazy guy. Soon, doctors ran into the room and immediately returned the sick patient to his own room. This whole situation did not pass by the students. They were increasingly surprised, looking at this madman. Just recently, he was the biggest loser in the whole school, but now he has turned into a hero. After all these events, it's hard not to consider Albert a cool guy who can no longer be offended. Local social networks have already started writing that now everyone who tries to offend this guy will regret it very much. Everyone knows that Albert has acquired incredible strength, and now it is better not to mess with him. While he was catching a suicide, his arm broke due to the pressure. The doctors were shocked that the guy didn't even feel pain. They thought he had pain syndrome. As soon as the operation began, the system immediately notified its owner of the changes. He completed his mission in the world of illusions, increased his level, and received several skills as a reward. This means that Archie can now finally return to the real world in his own body. Now he is back in a mental hospital next to his best friend, Ronald. He immediately told Ronald that he was in an illusory realm and turned into a psychopath dressed in women's pajamas. Ronald had never heard more perverted fantasies, but strangely enough, he liked this story very much. Meanwhile, the real Albert was in the hospital next to his crying mother. When he woke up, he began to experience incredible pain and screamed so loudly as if he was being attacked by a killer monster. Then it was time to go back to school, the very place Albert hated. He asked his mother not to leave him alone. She had to go to work, so he was left alone with the sharks. As soon as he entered the school, he saw all the senior students and hooligans in front of him. All these bloodsuckers looked at him as if he were their victim, whom they would now try to tear into pieces like bacon. Albert was absolutely convinced that his life was about to end, but a second later, all the local hooligans were kneeling before him. They officially recognized their hero, who is now invincible in their eyes. His love, Catherine, also came here to ask him to change his mind and finally become her boyfriend. On the same day, a serious meeting between representatives of various guilds took place at the Hunters' headquarters. Master Tao is absolutely convinced that we must prepare for war against the approaching monsters. Mr. Mao replies that the threat is not as serious as it may seem, so it is too early to panic. The problem is that the monster's consciousness is evolving, and this will soon become a serious problem.
Yumi suggests launching a preemptive strike and destroying the monsters before they make any progress.
Master Jones partially agrees with her views but suggests being more careful. The intelligence of the cursed monsters grows every day. Soon, ordinary warriors will not be able to stop these creatures. All police officers must be warned that a global cataclysm may soon begin. Apparently, whoever gathered all these people in this room is clearly unhappy with the way the dialogue is taking place. Master Pirate is the leader of the Special Forces and the best fighter of the first rank. He calls to become stronger in order to destroy any threat in his path. Now we can return to the psychiatric hospital, where the director is celebrating his birthday today. Many people gathered to congratulate this man, because he is the center of the team. Mr. Donald has been working at this clinic for a long time, and over the years has become known as a good person who will always come to the aid of patients. He was about to make a wish when his assistant ran into the room and reported a new problem. The patients have once again gathered in the Hell Room to begin another round of protests. Archie and Ronald protest almost every day to achieve the results they want. To calm these guys down, you have to offer them sweet buns and tasty sausages, but today it doesn't work at all. The hospital director immediately came running to sort out the situation and continue celebrating his birthday. He ordered these two madmen to stop immediately and calm down.
As a result, his words were useless. In response, Archie and Ronald began to roll on the floor like little children.
These madmen always get what they want, and today will be no exception. Our main characters just wanted to get sports equipment for full-fledged training. As soon as they had the opportunity, they immediately destroyed absolutely all the inventory. Looking at them, it seems that they are beasts that have risen from hell in order to take over the whole world.
However, they consider themselves warriors who have achieved enlightenment through active training.
Now it's time to return to that same amazing four hunters who rushed to save the world. Today they meet with monsters in order to destroy them and to finally free the city's inhabitants from fear. Hellhounds are a serious obstacle because the size of these monsters is truly mind-boggling.
We will have to try and apply maximum effort in order to get out of this battle alive.
Even at their young age, these guys seem quite experienced and cool-headed. It seems like they have been in similar battles many times before and are not at all worried at critical moments. Their skills were enough to make the Hellhound whine like a little dog. The hunters intended to deal with him as if he were an ordinary child, but in the end they only angered the monster. Within a few minutes, these children regretted that they had come here at all.
They were about to call their mother, but it was too late because the beast had already gone out hunting.
The battlefield immediately turned bloody. It became too creepy to be here. Maria expected a completely different turn of events when she was going to meet the monsters with her friends. Next time, she will think twice about whether she needs this fight or not. The problem is that there may not be a next time if the whole team does not show flexibility and composure now.
They must adapt to the surrounding conditions and find the shortest path to victory.
The wolf looked at them as if they were hares, which would make a wonderful snack for him. The children thought that with their faith they could win, but that's not how it works. The battle was quickly lost, but the hunters had an ace up their sleeve.
At a critical moment, one of the warriors decided to blow himself up in order to at least fry this hellish dog a little. It must be admitted that he did it very well. The wolf whined and immediately decided to retreat.
Although he is a real obstacle for every hunter, he will remember this battle for a long time. Now we can return to our two favorite psychos who are spending their free time on the street today.
Through cultivation and completing the mission, Archie has already managed to obtain the key technique, which will help him accumulate spiritual energy.
Never before had Ronald noticed his friend looking so bright and stunning.
Ronald doesn't seem to like it at all.
He decided to intervene and begin the acupuncture process to make Archie feel much better. Is this just his way of trying to get a little attention? Or does Ronald really believe in what he's doing? For the first time in years, Archie felt real pain and was unable to contain his emotions. Before, he didn't care at all about anything that was happening, but now everything has changed.
Archie's system has just unlocked absolute vision, which gives the hero new abilities.
Ronald thought that all this was possible thanks to his acupuncture technique. It seems that this guy is impossible to cure. He advised his comrade to go to the canteen immediately to replenish his energy reserves. Within minutes, Archie was eating his 10th helping of lunch. He had never been so hungry.
Even the local nurse began to worry about his well-being, because at this rate he could damage his stomach. It looks like one of the patients has turned into a pig, which will now be very difficult to feed.
Archie continued to complain about being incredibly hungry and asked for at least 10 big tasties and french fries.
He was so hungry that he even started eating kitchen utensils. Is the internal system really that hungry for energy? Now he will be hungry almost constantly, but his characteristics will increase significantly. Meanwhile, a special investigation team arrived at the crime scene. Here they found young hunters who had failed to defeat the hellish dog in a bloody massacre. The agents are clearly unhappy, as it is always unpleasant to bury young and inexperienced hunters. Also spotted at the crime scene was a pirate, looking like he was about to explode in rage. He had just received information that 4 hunters were unable to deal with one monster.
This means that the rumors about cursed creatures were true. The monsters really do evolve at an incredible speed.
The children turned out to be too stupid and stubborn, but this does not mean that their strength was not enough to defeat the monster.
The devil dog has turned into a real titan, and now he can become a problem for every inhabitant of the earth. The director of the psychiatric hospital sat quietly in his office and dreamed about how he would buy himself the new GTA 6. It was at this moment that an assistant ran into his office and delivered some unpleasant news.
In the dining room, patients from the devil's room frighten everyone else with their inadequate behavior. For several hours now, everyone has been trying to figure out what happened to Archie. This guy has been crazy for a long time, but now he has started eating like a pig and there's no stopping him. A best friend always knows when you need help. Ronald is convinced that Archie needs his support now. He is going to act in the most unexpected way possible in order to provide his friend with everything he needs. This guy decided to start a riot with other patients to attract the attention of the guards. Their plan was quickly implemented, allowing Archie to escape while no one was paying attention to him. These patients act like real professionals. They should have been recruited into the local special forces a long time ago. I have no doubt that together they would be able to defeat absolutely any monster from this universe. Archie needed to get free of security for obvious reasons.
He's madly hungry, and now he needs to get into the kitchen to make all his dreams come true.
The women who are responsible for cooking have never seen such a terrible monster. Probably if a devil dog had stood in front of them, it would have seemed much more beautiful and pleasant to them than Archie.
This little glutton just wants to eat, but his appearance shows who he really is.
As soon as he unexpectedly approaches the hospital staff, everyone around him immediately loses consciousness from fear. The director will have to pay for the cooks to see a therapist, otherwise they will not return to work. He ordered his assistant to check Archie immediately, because if this pig is not stopped, he will eat up the entire hospital. It was a lot of fun in the mental hospital this day, but the night can be much more active. Let's not forget that the devil dog is still on the loose. He's thirsty for tasty food, as well as a person who can scratch his tummy. After the last battle, he had many wounds, so now he needs a quiet and safe place to recuperate. A mental hospital seems like the perfect place to take a nap and relax. The devil dog looks scared. For the first time in his life, he feels the vulnerability of his own body. His comrades informed him that people like quiet and cute animals. That's why the monster turned into a small dog. He turned out to be much more cunning than he seemed. Seeing such a beautiful and wounded dog, people will not be able to resist. That's what the monster thinks. This wily little dog is capable of creating colossal problems, but let's see how he copes with a couple of reckless madmen who know no fear. Archie and Ronald were chatting calmly and teasing each other until they noticed something unusual outside the window. Taking a closer look, they realized that they had an uninvited guest, looking so cute and homely. It is probably difficult to resist such a charming puppy. As soon as you see such a lovely creature, you immediately want to let it into the house, feed it, and warm it up. Ronald, he instantly succumbed to the charm, and it immediately became clear that he would be an easy victim for the cunning wolf. Archie was not averse to letting the little dog inside, and just a few minutes later, the devil's spawn was in the hospital. So far, everything is going exactly according to the monster's plan, but it seems he still hasn't realized where he's actually ended up. He thought he had found himself in a quiet and safe haven, but in reality, He was faced with sadists who took true pleasure in causing pain to other beings. The dog will have to undergo an acupuncture procedure. Only after that will he be considered a full-fledged member of the hospital community. Now he is much better. He clearly looks joyful and carefree, like a unicorn on an emerald meadow. The next few moments passed in the same vein for him. The hellhound had long since bitterly regretted his appearance here. He believed that people would be too weak and naive, but the reality turned out to be much harsher than could have been imagined. During these cruel amusements, the system notified the owner of the proximity of a creature emitting enormous energy. This entity could satisfy Archie's hunger, just absorb this little puppy, and his health would immediately improve. The devil dog noticed how the expression on one of the guy's faces changed. He began to resemble a demon thirsty for food. A little later, Ronald joined his friend, declaring the need to perform another ritual. These two madmen are ready to go to any lengths to make the tiny dog suffer. Now the devil dog doubted that there were people in front of him. It seemed that they were monstrous creatures from the bottomless depths. The couple plans to wait until he dies from pain shock before they begin their meal. Apparently they didn't have enough food in the canteen, so they decided to have a delicious barbecue before bed. The devil dog realized that this could not continue and decided to show his inner power. The monster menacingly declared that he would now tear these two people to pieces for their disrespect towards him. At that moment, Ronald was happy. It seemed to him that the little dog had finally transformed into a wonderful angel. If nothing is done, Ronald will now say goodbye to life. He is acting too naively and does not realize all the threats. He was incredibly lucky that his best friend was nearby and intervened in the situation in a timely manner. Using his system skills, Archie quickly showed this dog who was boss and who to listen to. The devil dog did not understand at all why he could not bite this man. For the first time in his life, he had encountered such difficulties. We'll have to clearly show him who's in charge here, so that something like this doesn't happen again. Until this moment, the monster crushed everyone in its path, but now you can forget about that. The people who live in the mental hospital are much more dangerous monsters than the creatures from the abyss. The devilish dog will remember their faces for a long time. They will haunt him in his nightmares. After a short lesson in admonition, Ronald had an interesting thought. He remembered that the last time the operation with electricity had gone quite successfully. The same procedure must be carried out with the dog so that it turns into a crispy, juicy shashlik. Then it can be cut and eaten very quickly, which will be a great dinner before a sweet sleep. The devil dog still can't comprehend where he ended up. Is he really in the human world? Archie instantly picked up on his friend's idea and promptly activated the electricity to lightly fry the dog. The inhabitants of other chambers peered into the windows, trying to understand what was happening in the devilish room. Many have already become accustomed to the idea that Archie and Ronald cannot be left alone for long. All it takes is the slightest spark to ignite a flame that will never go out. The devil dog has emerged victorious in countless battles against extremely powerful opponents. At the moment when he thought he was already invincible, he met ordinary madmen who drove him into the grave. Now this valiant little dog could very well become an excellent snack for two madmen. They hadn't tasted anything so delicious for a long time. And it's worth remembering that the devil dog is filled with cosmic energy. Such power perfectly restores the body and gives a person unprecedented strength. The new employee of the clinic had not yet become accustomed to local customs, so he looked a little tense. As soon as he approached the devil's room, he realized that the sounds were coming from there. It was enough to just look through the crack in the door to see two aggressively minded faces. The guard immediately felt a shiver run down his spine. He felt a piercing cold and a very sharp smell of death. Never before in his life had this guy been so scared, although he was perfectly aware of where he would have to work. It now becomes obvious why many of the clinic's employees eventually become patients themselves. It's hard to stay sane after witnessing something like this. There is no doubt that tomorrow this guy will ask to be transferred to another clinic, or even decide to commit suicide. In the corridor, he was met by the director, accompanied by his assistants. Mr. Donald immediately went to the devil's room to personally verify the guard's story. As soon as he opened the door and turned on the light, he discovered two nice guys resting peacefully there. Archie and Ronald don't seem to be causing any trouble, although if you look closely you can see traces of dog fat on their faces. It will be difficult for them to explain where they got the devil dog skin. They will have to claim that such goods are freely sold on the local market. Of course, all this looks extremely suspicious, but the director does not want to create unnecessary trouble for himself. He warned the boys to be quieter and not to attract any more attention to themselves. After this, he turned off the light and said goodbye, and the two madmen immediately rose from their beds. They began to discuss their dinner and declared that next time they should prepare something more tender and juicy. The wolf meat was filled with energy, giving Archie a 20% boost to all of his base stats. Now it's time to shift the focus away from the madmen and see what the hunter known as the pirate is up to. He has long cherished the dream of catching this damned wolf in order to skin it and grind its bones into powder. Quite unexpectedly, this man received a call from an unknown subscriber. An unknown man reported that his patient had destroyed a monster that the entire city was hunting. Of course, the pirate did not believe this fable, but the stranger on the phone said that he had proof. All he had to do was arrive at the scene. The experienced hunter was not used to refusing easy prey. He decided to take advantage of this opportunity to make sure the wolf died. If the monster is truly dead, it would be extremely interesting to see the man who managed to defeat it. Within a few hours, the hospital director met with Pirate for a detailed discussion. It was he who turned out to be the anonymous caller who contacted the experienced hunter to tell him about everything that had happened. The pirate does not intend to believe in fiction, because an ordinary person is not capable of defeating such a strong and powerful creature. 4 hunters fought against this monster and were mercilessly killed, so it is hard to believe that some psychopath destroyed the monster and then ate its flesh. If the hunter does not want to trust the words, he should familiarize himself with the psychopath's personal information. Archie has been hurting himself for a long time and making every attempt to die, but somehow the doctors miraculously keep bringing him back from the brink of death. Together with his friend, they not only dealt with the monster, but also consumed its meat as a second dinner. The pirate realized that the 2 psychopaths might have a special gift. Now he is eager to meet them. The next morning, our heroes woke up and began a very intellectual game. The first one to blink is the loser. These are the terms of this game they are currently immersed in. It is not very pleasant to watch these unhealthy people, because it may seem that they are mentally retarded. This guy named Archie doesn't look like he's gained incredible powers. The director did not pay attention to his interlocutor, so the pirate declared that if Archie's gift was discovered, he would certainly take it with him. After that, everything changed completely. Mr. Donald immediately realized that he could get rid of the hospital's most problematic patient. He announced that Archie was a mutant who had been diagnosed with superpowers and therefore needed to be immediately isolated from society. Of course, the pirate didn't believe him. It all looked like the old man was trying to get rid of unnecessary worries. In any case, an experienced hunter has arrived here to ensure the safety of humanity. Monsters evolve and become more powerful, so you should seize every opportunity. If there is a chance that this guy is truly unique, then he needs to be thoroughly checked. Perhaps Archie will be the key to freeing planet Earth from these terrifying creatures. Soon the experienced hunter approached the 2 lunatics and told them that he knew about their fun yesterday. He directly tried to find out how exactly they managed to destroy the huge devil dog. Best friends understand each other so well that they don't even need to consult each other to give the same answers to questions. They pretend that they didn't eat anyone or kill anyone, and don't even understand what we're talking about. Apparently, these ignoramuses need to be shown who is in charge here, otherwise they will not take the hunter seriously. Golden Palm is a top-tier skill, but Archie didn't react to it at all. Somehow, Ronald realized that in front of them was a man who could teach Archie special skills. He asked his friend to trust this man and tell him the truth. Archie is extremely skeptical. He believes that the pirate is not suitable for him at all. If he wanted to train with a pirate, he would have called Captain Jack Sparrow, savvy? Ronald immediately began to tell the master about the training sessions that he and his friend had conducted in the past. The pirate quickly realized that by training they meant suicide methods. These guys should have been dead a long time ago, but somehow they are still alive, even despite all their attempts to commit suicide. Ronald even suggested that the hunter join them and try to train in order to feel the effect of the skills. With the strength he has, the hunter can easily penetrate someone else's armor, which is why he agreed to participate in the acupuncture session. He is convinced that his life is not in danger, but is he celebrating his success too hastily? The devil wolf soon regretted underestimating his opponent. Now the same thing could happen to the martial artist. Ronald believes he is a genuine master of acupuncture, although of course he is nothing more than a psycho who has watched too many Shaolin movies. He is lucky that no one has yet pointed out to him his illusions about his own success. Let's see where this leads. Meanwhile, the hunter feels numb, but nothing supernatural happens. Suddenly, he felt extremely strange, as if some creature had entered his mind. A person experiences similar sensations when the soul leaves his body. The hunter had never experienced anything like this before. After a few seconds, he even lost consciousness. Ronald began to wonder if there might be something wrong with his acupuncture technique, even though he had previously considered himself the greatest practitioner in the world. He is convinced that everything will go much better the second time, and asks his best friend to trust him no matter what. Of course, Archie trusted his friend, which resulted in him also losing consciousness and lying on the floor like a helpless worm. Ronald is not going to stop there. He believes that more experiments need to be carried out. He decided to find another victim and conduct the training on himself. The result remained the same. When the hospital director discovered them, he was amazed at how Ronald got a year's supply of needles. Even a national-level fighter wouldn't be able to handle this kind of training. These guys are really crazy. Meanwhile, the local hospital was, as usual, too crowded. An emergency call came in and the whole world seemed to freeze. Everyone around was frozen and afraid to move. Would they really have to save psychos from the devil's chamber again? On the other end of the line was Mr. Donald, who said that his patients needed help. What everyone had feared so much had happened, but the hospital had no right to refuse. I had to rush to the rescue and once again save people who were desperately trying to commit suicide. Less than half an hour later, 2 psychopaths were lying on the operating chair. Fred can't believe these guys are back in his hospital, when he had hoped it would never happen again. He had a serious talk with the director and agreed that they would be kept under lock and key. As a result, just 2 days later, the psychopaths attempted suicide again, and it was no longer funny. The director didn't listen to this guy and said that sometimes things get out of control. Donald can really be understood because he is completely powerless in front of these 2 madmen. Meanwhile, the system congratulated the owner on his promotion to the highest rank. Thanks to his latest training, Archie has gained the ability to grow to his maximum size and has become significantly stronger. This hospital is currently home to a security guard who nearly lost his mind after a night of partying in the psychiatric ward. He seems to be doing well now. He's probably on the mend and even got himself a girlfriend. Now they are discussing the upcoming wedding and even making plans for their honeymoon. It's always nice to watch lovers who can't spend a single minute without each other. These guys are literally beaming with happiness. It seems like nothing can stop them. At that very moment, the doors of the ward swung open to admit another patient. The security guard was shocked to see in front of him the very guy who is called the craziest psycho in the world. He started screaming, saying that it was because of Archie that he was in this hospital. Then this guy started foaming at the mouth. He convulsed for a long time like a worm, and then completely lost consciousness. You can't envy the workers at a psychiatric hospital. They have to deal with complete scumbags. The guard had to beg the local doctor to transfer him to another ward. After some time, even the pirate opened his eyes and tried to understand what had happened to him. Previously, he considered himself invulnerable, but now it turns out that some psychos made him lose consciousness. Now he is no longer sure that he is the strongest fighter in the world, although just recently everything was different. It seems that Ronald took notice of his new friend and suggested that they have another training session. He said that he was very sorry that the previous lesson had been unsuccessful, but promised to improve the quality of teaching. By now, he has already managed to watch several videos on YouTube and master a new acupuncture technique. Ronald promised to cure Pirate's eyes, but this time something went wrong again. Within minutes, the entire hospital was filled with screams and groans. Archie even had to calm his friend down. With these trainings, the hunter will completely lose his self-confidence and his life is now really in serious danger. Until that day, he considered himself invincible. Now he would hardly find the strength to challenge even an ordinary child. Even after all this, Ronald is not going to stop and asks to give him another chance. This guy is a real madman, because one more training will finally kill the hunter. However, the hunter still does not intend to give up. He wants to make sure that his skills have not disappeared. If that means going through another class, then so be it. He decided to take a risk and trust Ronald for the 3rd time. You've probably all guessed by now that this was a colossal mistake that the pirate will remember for a long time. Ronald failed to show his best qualities. He turned out to be a common charlatan without any skills. Archie tried his best to support his friend, but he was not very successful. Now the best hunter in the country will have to spend a long time restoring his health. And he only wanted to train. This is what happens when you mess with psychos who think they're heroes. Soon the friends faced a new problem. They had completely run out of money, and now they could not buy themselves some tasty food. After some thought, they decided to offer the master to purchase a training session from them. The pirate asked them to shut up and finally tell him exactly how they dealt with the devil dog. If they tell him the truth, he will definitely pay them. Ronald immediately stated that the dog was extremely cute and fluffy, and he even knew how to wag his tail in a funny way. Hunter refuses to believe that the devil dog allowed himself to be petted and then turned into barbecue. In fact, that's exactly what happened. Now the best friends wouldn't mind roasting that dog again. They are indeed crazy, but even so, they speak the truth. The pirate refuses to believe these tales. He admits that it is his own fault for getting involved with psychopaths. In any case, he promised to pay them, so now it is necessary to fulfill the agreement. Friends just received a gold card. Now they can buy absolutely everything they want. For a hunter, money does not matter. He lives only for achievements, so he can be generous and give money for any needs. It turned out that these two mentally retarded children don't even know what bank cards look like. They refused to use the card and said they were only interested in cash. Because of all these events, we completely forgot that besides the devil dog, there are other monsters that escape from the forest. The second-level mystical snake is currently located near the hospital. This means that soon the two psychopaths may encounter another monster with incredible potential. The snake senses the aura of a high-level fighter, so it does not want to enter the hospital, so as not to bring trouble upon itself. The monster decided to wait for two psychopaths on the street to avenge his fellow devil dog. It was at this moment that he witnessed a very romantic and hot scene. It seems that something forbidden is happening in this forest, something that is best kept silent about. When the whole process was completed, the woman received money from the satisfied man. The monster decided to take advantage of the moment to feast on the sweet meat. The snake is absolutely sure that the pirate will not sense his presence and will not attack suddenly. At the very last moment, the monster stopped, for he felt the approach of a familiar energy. This energy belongs to the devil dog, which was supposed to be dead. The monster noticed the approach of two young guys. The girl also showed interest in them. She suggested that the three of them play a little because it could bring in some good money. What these guys are really looking for is tasty drinks and food. They're not really interested in games. They held hands, and the girl immediately began to think that these were extraordinary men. Looking at their clothes, she quickly realized that they were patients of a psychiatric clinic. These psychos can be quite dangerous, so making friends with them would be reckless. An ordinary person would immediately try to run away, but Jessica has a very mysterious past. Once upon a time, her sister was also a client of a psychiatric clinic. Jessica's sister considered the stuffed doll to be her child, although from the outside it looked absurd. Soon, one bad guy tore the doll into two pieces, and thus broke the girl's heart. It was very difficult for her to survive this pain, because she really considered the doll her child. At that moment, Jessica was nearby and watched her sister suffer. She remembered that moment for a long time. After that day, Jessica was never the same. Many years have passed, but even now she treats patients in the psychiatric clinic very differently. Jessica tried to find out where the families of these two funny guys were. In response, she heard that these guys practically never see their families and consider each other the closest people in this world. Jessica immediately realized that she couldn't pass by. She took out the money and gave it to Archie and Ronald. It was at this moment that the serpent decided that now was his opportunity for a surprise attack. If the guys hadn't reacted in time, everything would have ended very sadly. But Archie's skills came in handy at the most important moment. Apparently, the training really made him a special warrior, who can now catch monsters even with his eyes closed. Ronald said that this snake looks very cute and should definitely be kept. This monster had previously faced hatred from people. It had been like that since the very first day of its life. Whenever he tried to get to know small children, he always saw hatred, cruelty, and alienation in response. People simply did not want to meet the monster because they were afraid that the serpent could be poisonous and very evil. That is why the serpent turned into a monster that kills everything in its path. Today, for the first time in his life, he felt needed, because he had just been called cute and very handsome. Now he squeezes your hand lovingly and shows with his whole appearance that he wants to make friends. The system instantly discovered that such a serpent could alleviate its owner's hunger for several days ahead. All you need to do is soak the monster in the marinade, steam it with vegetables, and then you will get a truly delicious dish. For now, the snake doesn't even suspect that they are soon planning to make a very tasty delicacy out of him. It was decided to go to Jessica's house to have a little something to eat. Jessica turned out to be quite a nice girl and said that she could cook very well. The terrible monster that terrified and terrorized the entire city turned out to be very tasty and juicy. Archie personally took care of cutting the meat and chopping it into small pieces. The meat turned out to be a little tough, so I had to act as aggressively as possible. Archie tore off the monster's head with his own hands and chopped up the rest of the body into small pieces for soup. Of course, in the end, everyone was happy to taste the delicious delicacy prepared by Jessica's hands. The hungry boys finally got their hunger satisfied, especially Archie, who has recently turned into an insatiable pig. Jessica was happy to help these guys. They constantly reminded her of her little sister. When evening came, it was time to say goodbye. Perhaps they would meet again in the future. The psychopaths were happy to meet a beautiful girl, and it turned out that they even know how to communicate with society. After that, they went for an evening walk and met a mysterious foursome in the city center. Archie immediately noticed these unknown people. They seemed very curious to him. The four friends also looked at the psychos. The aura of dangerous fighters could be felt from these two strangers. These were hunters who went in search of the long serpent. Soon they would feel that its energy had completely evaporated. These hunters are subordinates of the pirate, with whom they are in constant contact. They soon reported to their boss that the serpent had been destroyed, and its aura was no longer present within the city. At first, Pirate refused to believe it, but then the conversation had to be interrupted because psychopaths returned to the hospital. Archie decided to bring his new friend some of the delicious broth that Jessica had prepared. The smell immediately spread throughout the room. It was the rich smell of a monster. Of course, the experienced hunter immediately determined what exactly he was being offered to eat. He screamed like a slaughtered pig. His assistants were shocked and did not understand what was happening. By eating the monster, Archie unlocked new skills and increased his basic stats. He already realized that he needed to constantly eat such creatures in order to develop quickly. Psychopaths don't understand at all why their new friend is behaving so strangely and refusing to eat delicious soup. The pirate has been trying to figure out how exactly these two mentally retarded children managed to destroy the dangerous monster. Not every hunter would defeat a cursed creature with deadly poison, but these two managed to do it without any problems. They said that the snake was very charming, so they immediately decided to cut it into small pieces to then cook something delicious. Now the snake is finally united with his friend. They must be having a great time in heaven. Now the pirate finally realized that it was better not to trust these two hooligans, because they were the children of the devil. Due to new problems, this guy has turned into an overly aggressive grandfather who is difficult to communicate with. He'll have to adapt to these two guys anyway, because somehow they've unlocked skills that allow them to destroy dangerous monsters. After a few hours, the sun finally set below the horizon, and it was time to get some rest. The hunter couldn't sleep for a long time because he kept thinking about two psychopaths who possessed incredible strength. These guys have already quietly and peacefully killed two damn beasts, but how did they do it? In the middle of the night, the hunter noticed that these guys were going somewhere. They were clearly doing something at night. The friends consider Pirate a good person. They want to use the new technique to cure his condition. The hunter decided to pretend that he was asleep and trust Ronald one last time. The pirate hopes that today this psychopath will finally show his talents and be able to show his best skills. In reality, this is nothing more than an illusion, and everything will end the same as last time. During the secret operation, the hunter felt an incredible burning sensation in every part of his body. He started sweating very quickly, but still pretended as if he was sleeping and nothing was happening. Suddenly, someone entered the room, causing Ronald to miss and make a mistake. The young nurse told everyone to stop immediately and put an end to this lawlessness. The experienced hunter did not understand what was happening. At times, it even seemed to him that he was dead. He began to ask the nurse for help because his health was deteriorating very quickly. The woman started screaming and panicking. She said that two psychopathic killers had decided to kill another patient. She must have only been working here for a short time because otherwise she would have known for a long time who these guys are and what they do here. Ronald looked upset because the nurse came and he stuck the last needle in the wrong area. Archie always supports his friend. Today's failure is no exception. After their latest pranks, the hospital director decided to tie these guys up tightly. Meanwhile, they were trying to bring the country's top hunter back to normal. They just checked his brain area. The operation is about to start. It was at this moment that Pirate opened his eyes and looked questioningly at the surgeons. His condition quickly improved, and it was decided not to perform brain surgery. The doctor warned that the roommates were too aggressive, so it was better not to talk to them. He even called the guys crazy, but the hunter began to stand up for his new friends as if they were his children. Everyone around him decided that he had gotten involved with psychopaths, and had now turned into a madman too. The pirate didn't even continue the conversation. He immediately decided to return to his friends. Very soon he found himself in a room where terrible experiments were being conducted. The head of the special forces and the best fighter in the country has already lost consciousness 3 times because of the guy from the mental hospital. All this is beyond his comprehension, and so the pirate wants to understand how exactly it all happened. He promised himself never to trust these madmen again, because it was because of them that he lost his precious hair. Archie woke up immediately and said that next time the training would go better. He is confident that Ronald will find a way to completely cure the hunter of all his problems. In fact, Pirate doesn't intend to stay with these guys for even a few more seconds. It's time to go on a journey and never meet psychopaths again. When he tried to jump out of the window, a young nurse entered the room. She started screaming because she thought the patient had gone crazy and was trying to commit suicide. Apparently, it is difficult for her to understand that people with special skills can calmly jump out of a window and not worry about anything. The pirate is not going to waste his time on these psychos anymore. He has other things to do. The two friends may have great power, but they are too difficult to interact with, so he doesn't intend to stay here any longer. When the director of the hospital found out about this, his heart was broken, because he hoped to get rid of his 2 main problems. The old man had never felt so depressed before. Today his life changed. He had to call Fred and tell him that psychopaths would still be their main problem. Of course, Fred was unhappy and screamed as if he was now in danger of dying. He hoped that psychopaths would no longer appear in his hospital, but the result was the opposite. The next morning, Fred personally got into the car to drive his friends back to the mental hospital. All this time, they constantly thought about their friend who refused to continue training. It's hard to believe that he survived all these trials and just decided to leave like a free bird. Perhaps he will return someday and they will definitely be able to repeat their failed experiment. Fred is now focused on getting these psychopaths back into their home as quickly as possible. This means that you can deviate a little from this story and see what is happening in another area of the city. A cursed octopus, which is a 4th-level creature, has appeared in the local port. It is worth remembering that the huge devil dog, along with the rattlesnake, were only 2nd-level monsters. This means that the octopus will be much more difficult to deal with, which is why a squad of hunters is currently fighting against it. This is the same mysterious 4 who work for the main pirate of the country. It's not easy for them at all, because the octopus turned out to be much more powerful and faster than one could have expected. He uses the Golden Claw defense technique to repel all possible enemy attacks. The team members were already sure that inevitable death awaited them, because the monster turned out to be much stronger. At the very last moment, when it seemed that death was inevitable, another participant in the battle appeared and saved the mysterious 4. It is immediately obvious that this is a hunter of a very high level, who has not felt the scent of battle for a long time. He came to save all his subordinates and help them finally defeat this terrible monster. The pirate has been messing around at the local hospital for a long time, but now he's finally free and can get back to work. Of course, his staff will have to get used to the fact that he has changed his image and turned into a hitman. With his legendary Buddha technique, he just delivered a golden death blow. Meanwhile, too many cars had accumulated on the city's main bridge and traffic had stopped. It was clear that people were running in different directions and trying to escape, as if they were being pursued by a monster. At first, Fred didn't understand what was happening, but then he realized the gravity of the situation. By that point, the bald bodybuilder from Brazzers had defeated the monster, but he still felt the presence of evil spirits. During the battle, his squad was seriously injured, but the boss intervened in time and saved these children from death. In fact, the problems were not over yet, and all this was nothing more than a warm-up. One damned creature managed to escape and headed towards the city center. This is why there is so much panic on the bridge now, and a large number of destroyed cars and people. Psychopaths don't understand what's going on at all, and frankly, they don't care at all. Archie feels very hungry, now he wouldn't mind eating even his own friend. Meanwhile, a huge octopus is very close and looking for its beloved father. It's best not to tell this monster that a pirate has appeared who destroyed his father, and now they will never meet again. Fred tries to provide emergency medical care to the victims, but the number of victims is too great. He forgets that there are 2 patients in the car who need to be taken to a mental hospital as quickly as possible. Fred believes that these 2 madmen cannot be called human, so there's no need to worry about them even if they die from terrible injuries. The assistant chief physician said that a monster was approaching here, so there was no time to play games. He freed the 2 madmen and said that they could safely escape and try to save themselves from death. The situation is getting more tense with every minute. The feeling of fear of death is approaching at an incredible speed. Everyone around is scared to the core, but the 2 friends don't pay any attention to it at all, because they are too hungry to be afraid. Having taken a closer look at the assistant, whose name is Flynn, the friends confidently declared that they really wanted to meet the local monster. If it is cute and funny, they will be happy to make a delicious seafood soup from it. Flynn was clearly not prepared for this, but while he was still surprised, the same huge monster appeared behind him. Archie said that there was no need to run anywhere, because he and his friend would take care of everything. It is enough just to meet the monster and get to know him. After that, all problems will fade into the background. Now Flynn was convinced that he was dealing with 2 psychopaths with whom it was better not to have anything to do. The giant octopus was still looking for his father, who had abandoned him many years ago and gone to another family. Today, the role of his father will be played by Archie, who will be happy to meet his beloved son. Fred tried his best to help those in need and did not pay attention to the approaching monster. The octopus was already very close, and only at that moment Fred finally realized what situation he found himself in. The octopus decided to destroy this guy, but at the last moment someone stopped him. The hospital's chief physician had an opportunity to escape, and he took advantage of the chance along with his assistant and the wounded man. By this time, the octopus was on the ground and trying to figure out who exactly pushed him off the bridge. It's not hard to guess that 2 madmen decided to play a little and arrange a training session on animal training here. Ronald is even crazier than his friend Archie. You never know what to expect from him. Relax for a second and you can lose absolutely all your hair like the pirate. The octopus is not used to constant humiliation because he considers himself the main monster of the ocean. This creature will now try to destroy Ronald and demonstrate its incredible power. At such moments, a friend is always ready to step in and show who is really the boss. If the octopus thinks that he is allowed to do absolutely everything, then this is a big mistake. Now, two madmen will tear off all his tentacles, and then we will see how his behavior will change. The friends were very hungry, so they decided to use the monster for their needs. Ronald and Archie used to watch cooking shows on TV all the time. They learned many secrets, so they decided to use their knowledge. To do this, it was necessary to tear off several tentacles, even though the octopus was clearly against it. Eating raw meat is not an option at all, so you will have to show off your culinary skills. Ronald said he was a professional who worked as a chef in an expensive restaurant in a past life. He found a grill very quickly and said that he could cook fried octopus no worse than the chef at Salt Bay. Even the octopus, who had lost a few tentacles, was interested in trying this delicious delicacy. At first, he did not understand what exactly was being offered to him, and only after some time did he realize that his own body part was being fried on the grill. The huge monster was shocked by the behavior of these guys. He finally realized that these were inadequate people. Not only did they smile as they prepared his meat, but they even thought of offering him the chance to taste the tentacles. For the first time in a long time, Archie will finally be able to quench his pig thirst. Because of this, the Kraken had to be tortured to death. But it was his own fault for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The friends had a great time and decided that the severed tentacles would be too few to enjoy for lunch. I had to cut the whole monster into small pieces and put it on the grill. Only now can we say with confidence that this will be enough to quench your thirst until the end of the day. Meanwhile, the country's top hunter arrived at the scene and tried to find the demon. He saw traces of the monster, but he did not understand where exactly this terrible monster had disappeared to. Thanks to special technologies, it became known that the monster is currently under the bridge. The pirate immediately went down and found two psychopaths who had eaten like pigs and lay down on the grass to take a little nap. At first, no one understood what was happening. The assistant even thought that there were terrible monsters in front of him. Only later did everyone around realize that these pigs had eaten a huge octopus. The pirate is no longer surprised by anything when he sees such guys. He understands that absolutely anything can happen. The pirate decided to personally greet the psychopaths and talk to them about what happened. Ronald and Archie said the meat was very tasty, and they regretted not leaving some for their friend. These guys are even crazier than you might think, but they clearly have hidden talents. After the completion of the special operation, the chief hunter immediately returned to his office. It's time to talk about the fact that every day the number of dangerous monsters in the city is constantly growing. This guy can't get the madmen who have already destroyed 3 damned creatures out of his head. These guys are clearly hiding something, although they pretend that they are mentally retarded and do not understand anything. The head of the Hunter's Analysis Department said that she had a plan to stop the monsters, but Pirate asked her not to rush to conclusions. Kira was very surprised, because before no one around her had allowed anyone to doubt her analysis. If the pirate is that upset over 2 psychopaths, then it becomes very interesting to explore. Kira stated that he would send all the interns to a mental hospital so that they could intern with Archie and Ronald. All the masters of the association were unsure about this strategy, because it seemed that an internship in a psychiatric hospital would be too easy. These guys have no idea what the interns will be dealing with, because they will have to deal with real devils. Kira thinks that this will be a great training because monsters are also psychopaths. In a sense, the trainees will be able to prepare for future battles, and this will have a positive effect on them. The Red Fox is acting too arrogantly, but she can afford it. No one around understands how dangerous a visit to a mental hospital can be. Only the pirate survived this ordeal, and now he will never return there again. There are more and more monsters in the city, so specific measures need to be taken. Among the enemies, there are creatures with a high level of intelligence. They are constantly evolving. Strong emotions have learned to subjugate weaker creatures, and now they are gradually turning into an organized army. Like this has ever happened before in history, so humanity is in danger. No one knows how strong the demon that commands the entire army is. So much more data needs to be collected. 3 more days have passed since this conversation. Events are developing very quickly because it concerns human lives. For the past 3 days, Archie has been sleeping soundly after absorbing a significant amount of octopus energy. While he was sleeping, he looked like a pig, although in reality he looked so unchanged. It seems that during this time he has once again become stronger and awakened new abilities within himself. Now he only needs to want it, and with his finger he can destroy very strong and extremely powerful objects. Now Archie is only at the beginning of his evolutionary path. There is still too long a way ahead. Of this young man is already felt. Perhaps he will be the key to defeating the monsters. It would be hard to imagine all this without his constant support in the form of Ronald. This guy is a real friend who is always there and supports. In his head, he constantly hears various sounds that force him to perform certain actions. Archie asked his friend to go closer to the electric generator. Some system in his head forces him to touch this generator, even despite all the accompanying danger. For the first time in his life, Ronald tried to dissuade his friend. He said that it was very dangerous. But Archie was sure that he had complete control over the situation. Ronald has no choice but to trust his friend with his own health. Now this psychopath will either be roasted like a grilled chicken, or he will become much stronger and incomparably more powerful. The system constantly asks Archie to become stronger and to do so, to go beyond his comfort zone. Sometimes this leads to the most insane consequences, but in any case, it is very interesting to watch. One of the local doctors witnessed a terrible scene that he absolutely did not want to see. He quickly realized what was going on here and immediately began to think about calling the director here. By then, it was too late. Archie had connected to electricity and experienced an incredible boost of energy and vitality. He had never felt so strong, energy was filling his body, and at that moment Ronald was happy. Now it will be difficult to explain to the director of the hospital what exactly is going on here, although he is unlikely to be surprised by anything. Mr. Donald has long been accustomed to what happens to these guys, so for him, this is nothing more than another childish prank. Soon the electric generator could not withstand the voltage and exploded like an atomic bomb. Archie has gotten a serious tan and may now be the first African-American psychopath in a Korean hospital. Everyone around was very scared. Ronald was panicking and worried that his friend might never wake up. Actually, everything is fine. Archie was a little scared, but the experiment still went well. The friends wanted to hold hands without even thinking about how dangerous it was. Archie looks more like a supervillain now. It's electrical, so it's best not to come into contact with it. The president also decided to immediately come to the scene of the incident and personally observe the entire course of events. After some time, the wounded patient ended up in a local hospital, which means that the local surgeon is again experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. He is an ordinary person, so he is not able to withstand such a number of difficult operations. Archie has been taken to intensive care for the third time this week. This guy is truly crazy. He needs to be isolated from society. Fred still can't understand how this guy stays alive after such a difficult experience. He said that today he wants to personally perform the operation in order to understand how this child's body works. For the next 10 hours, Fred fought for Archie's life and at the same time tried to study his body. This guy survived, although the director of the psychiatric hospital probably won't like this news. Less than 3 days later, he brought 2 wounded psychopaths back here again, and of course no one likes that. Instead of treating normal people, doctors have to spend their time treating abnormal scum. Fred is no longer going to accept apologies. He demands that these madmen never be brought here again. In response, he saw only a smile. The president had come here to get an annual subscription to the hospital. This means that for the next 12 months, Archie and Ronald will be here almost every day. Apparently, the hospital's chief physician did not appreciate this humor and very quickly lost his composure from anger. Perhaps it wouldn't hurt for him to go to a mental hospital to get treatment for his anger. He kept repeating that he would kill Mr. Donald if he ever saw his pathetic old face again. The next morning, the two friends were reunited after a short separation. Ronald quickly regained consciousness after a minor electric shock. His life is not in danger. Meanwhile, the system notified the owner that he had successfully undergone body tempering, and now the cultivation technique had moved to a new level. Archie has become much stronger. His cultivation speed has reached the highest human values in the entire history of the Earth. Plus, it's received additional skin rejuvenation, making it as soft and gentle as a baby's bottom. Ronald was very happy to see his friend. He knew that everything would definitely end successfully. A few seconds later, a nurse entered the room and couldn't believe her own eyes. She called a doctor and an assistant here to study this abnormal case, which will forever go down in the history of medicine. Just yesterday, this man was on the verge of life and death, and today, he has turned into an angel who descended from heaven. He looks much better than before, and it's all thanks to the electrical charge that passed through his body. Now it's time to move away from the madman and return to the country's top hunter. The pirate never reveals his name to anyone, which only emphasizes his mysterious nature and unpredictable behavior. He had just learned that Archie had jumped onto an electric generator and almost committed suicide. He was sure that the guy would die in the coming days because his body would not withstand such stress. A few seconds later, the hunter received a call from the director of the psychiatric clinic. He thought it was some kind of joke because it was almost impossible to survive such a strong electric shock. These guys are truly anomalous creatures. There is no one to compare them to. Archie is probably at least rank 4. Perhaps his friend is also an awakened warrior. Having 2 rank 4 assassins in your hunter team would be an ideal scenario. The director will be glad if these two annoying problems that prevent him from sleeping well at night are finally taken away from him. Now let's go back to the hospital. There is a new security guard who was recently scared by Archie and Ronald. His name is Jerry. He changed rooms and stayed here with his girlfriend. His girlfriend said that Uncle Van wanted to come and check on Jerry in person to make sure he was okay. Jerry will be very happy about this because it was Uncle Van who introduced him to this beautiful princess. In fact, it is not as good as it may seem at first glance, but for now it is worth keeping silent about this. Right now, Uncle Wang is approaching the hospital where the young security guard Jerry is located. Rumor has it that Uncle Van is the lover of Jerry's girlfriend, whose name is Melanie. This story is too confusing, especially after a third-rank demon appeared on Uncle Wang's body. He got it after his grandfather ate a rotten piece of ham. He had never felt such an amazing taste before. His body immediately began to change before his eyes. With each passing minute, Van felt worse and worse, and it seemed to him that he was very badly poisoned. His body began to change very quickly. Wings appeared on his back, his heartbeat accelerated, and his eyes began to see the world differently. A local nurse noticed a suspicious man and looked at him closely. Soon she began to scream loudly because she realized that there was a huge monster in front of her. Because of her loud scream, the monster wanted to tear the girl into two parts and drink all her blood. There was no hunter nearby, so the nurse was unable to defend herself from the hands of this terrible creature. All this happened right next to the ward of two madmen who loved to feast on the sweet meat of monsters. At first, Archie and Ronald didn't pay much attention to this at all. They were busy with more important things, for example, discussing the new part of the cartoon Shrek. However, what was happening was impossible to ignore because there was a lot of blood around. By that time, the hospital had already learned about the appearance of the monster, and everyone began to run in different directions. No one was going to save the defenseless girl who fell into the clutches of the monster. She asked at least someone to stand up for her, but the situation was too dangerous for ordinary people. She was very lucky that Ronald was there, who doesn't even know that fear exists. As soon as he saw the monster, he immediately realized that he had the perfect guinea pig for experiments in front of him. All you have to do is get out your needles and give the big fly a little training. The monster decided to attack Ronald and make crab salad from his tender hands. Archie was against such plans. He would not allow anyone to hurt his best friend. If any monster came even a little closer to Ronald, that creature would immediately regret it. The monster thought that people were defenseless and weak creatures, but this is not entirely true. Now he will have to accept the fact that there are people who love to feast on the juicy meat of monsters. Less than a second later, Mr. Wang tried to run away, but no one would let him leave. Archie isn't about to let his snack get away with a severe punishment. He spent the whole night thinking about how exactly he would prepare the new dish, so now no one can stop him. The monster can very quickly say goodbye to its life, because its story is officially over. Ronald asked not to kill this guy because he wanted to play a little. We all know how much this guy loves needle training. Today he wanted to test some skills again. The junior nurse had never seen such cruelty, and now she realized how wrong she had been. The thing is, up until this point she had considered the fly-like man to be the monster, but in reality the monsters are Ronald and Archie. Ronald methodically makes the monster feel depressed and broken. He likes to control this process. It turned out that the demon had already completely absorbed the consciousness of the person into whose body he had entered. If this monster dies now, the same thing will happen to the body of the man named Wang. Now the madmen have a moral choice because he kills not only the monster, but also the man it has absorbed. The monster was sure that the man would not be able to make this choice and would be completely paralyzed by indecision. At this moment, he will take advantage of the opportunity and completely absorb Ronald's power. The reality turns out to be completely different because Ronald is a psychopath from a mental hospital. This person doesn't care about his conscience and everything connected with it. He just wants to conduct training with elements of acupuncture. One careless movement caused the death of both the monster and the man at the same time. It seemed that the hospital was finally saved, but in fact there were several such monsters here. One of these flies was possessed by Melanie, whose appearance would now frighten even a dead man. When Jerry started dating this girl, he dreamed of a much prettier princess than what he sees now. He decided to act preemptively, ran out of the room, and immediately closed the door behind him. The monster is trying to avenge his father and must not be allowed out of this room under any circumstances. The problem is that keeping the monster at bay with ordinary wooden doors is nothing more than a joke. True strength will always break through such barriers, and that is the main problem. Meanwhile, the hospital's chief physician already knew that something strange was going on here, so he armed himself with a machete. Perhaps this Korean had visited Mexico often in the past and learned how to cut human bodies into small pieces. In that case, it won't be a serious problem for him to meet the monster and tear it to pieces. After a long operation, he slept and now feels perfect. It's time to make a bloody mess. Meanwhile, the monster has already managed to scare a large number of people. This circus must be stopped immediately. Jerry tried to calm his girlfriend down until the last moment. Apparently, this idiot doesn't understand that there's a completely different creature in front of him. Fred quickly intervened in the situation and saved Jerry from certain death. Jerry is completely disillusioned with girls. Now he says that he doesn't want to get involved with them anymore. Here you can't do without the technique of exorcising demons using the spirit execution skill. The creeping flame mantra worked very quickly, and the monster was trapped in an energy barrier. This means that hunters have appeared here who know how to use ancient martial arts techniques. The Shaolin school taught Pirate and his students to perform incredible tricks in a short period of time. Usually in a hospital, they try to save living beings. But today here, everything is exactly the opposite. Melanie was a beautiful girl, but after she turned into a monster, she had to be eliminated. A research team immediately arrived at the crime scene to analyze the situation. The energy waves of the second-ranked demons completely disappeared. Death was confirmed. Along the way, the research team also detected the signal of another third-ranked demon, which must be eliminated immediately. The system also notified that high energy activity had been detected in the building. The hunters and the research group were very scared. It seemed that something very scary was approaching them. They must do everything they can to protect the civilian population and wait for reinforcements, because real chaos is beginning. Melanie's body was torn apart, and another, much larger monster emerged from it. Nobody could understand how this happened and what to do now. The situation was really out of control. It is not at all clear how this happened, but it does not matter now, because the catastrophe is much closer than it seems. People ran in different directions and panicked. No one understood what to do. From the entire gray mass, two psychopaths stood out, seemingly lost, but not panicking at all. Next to them is a 7th-level demon, the founder of a race of monsters called Tahin larvae. This main boss rose up to avenge his children who were killed by madmen. He is driven by a desire for revenge, but in the end, he is just a big fly that will not frighten fearless people. 10 minutes before these events, Archie and Ronald had an unsuccessful training session and killed Uncle Van. Ronald was incredibly upset because his latest training session had gone badly. Of course, he can always count on his friend's support, but sometimes it's not at all comforting. More and more monsters are ending up in heaven due to acupuncture sessions gone wrong. This will take some getting used to because Ronald's skills are not improving at all. He was very lucky that the country's chief hunter was not killed, although he came very close to it. It's time to escape the crime scene in order to get rid of unnecessary suspicions. Archie suggested that they finally get out of this horrible hospital and breathe in the fresh air of freedom. There is still a junior nurse in this room who was saved by these two madmen. Perhaps for the first time in their lives, they heard words of gratitude from an ordinary person. Archie didn't know how to react, but Ronald immediately smiled and felt like a hero. After that, the guys jumped from the 2nd floor and found themselves on the ground. There was no one nearby. It didn't take more than a few seconds before people started running out of the hospital and trying to save their lives, ignoring the two madmen. All this happened because of the appearance of a terrible monster who tried to avenge his children. The country's chief pirate was already ready to act, but against such a monster, he needed solid support. Here we cannot do without the Sacred Duty Group, which is made up of 8th-rank warriors. They should be enough to suppress a rank 7 demon unless something supernatural happens. Meanwhile, Archie and Ronald noticed a huge fly, which seemed very cute and beautiful to them. The monster kept repeating that he wanted to kill these two guys, but this didn't bother them at all. On the contrary, it seemed that the monster was a wonderful dinner that would quench the newly arisen thirst. The system notified Archie that there was food with a high concentration of energy in front of him. He just needed to prepare a tasty dish, and the thirst would disappear again. During this time, the system even learned to recommend recipes, so all that remains is to kill the monster. A few chapters ago, we saw how Archie was able to split a tree in two with his touch. Now he tried to pull the same trick on the monster, and surprisingly, he succeeded. The hunters who were watching this battle were shocked. Apparently, their intervention would not be needed today. The huge boss had never experienced such pain before. His plan for revenge failed miserably. With his new skills, Archie used the energy cultivation technique and delivered a crushing blow. The more monsters he eats, the more energy appears in his body. This energy can then be used as crushing blows that no living creature can withstand. All that was left was to take the final step to make the boss finally shut up. One head was completely destroyed, but that was only half the battle. For perhaps the first time in his life, Archie was faced with a monster that could actually compete with him. I had to sweat a little and show my skills. This is the only way to make the monsters respect me. These cute animals need to understand that they are nothing more than a tasty snack for the real shark of this world. Soon the terrible titan was finally completely destroyed. The battle lasted no more than a few minutes. Ronald was happy. He was sure that his friend became so strong only after their joint training. By that time, the main hospital was falling apart. The hunters who were in the building tried to save as many people as possible with their special skills. They were waiting for reinforcements and still didn't know that the main monster had already been destroyed. Soon the system notified that the boss had been eliminated, and it was now possible to go outside. I can imagine the faces of these guys when they realize that their saviors are two mentally retarded guys. Archie wasn't in the mood for cooking. He said the fly didn't look very appetizing. During the battle, this guy spent too much energy, so his body couldn't withstand such stress for the first time. This is what happens when you don't eat enough sweet monster meat in time. Ronald immediately started screaming and calling people for help. His friend was in danger. The hunters were very close and immediately came running to help, and also to figure out what happened here. The presence of high-ranking demon energy waves can still be felt in the air. It soon became clear that the monster had long been eliminated, and now there was no need to wait for reinforcements. With the help of healing magic, Ronald should return to normal in a short period of time. There are other wounded hunters here who also need help after the battle. Less than an hour later, there were already scores of doctors on the battlefield who had arrived to provide emergency medical care. After some time, Archie finally woke up and felt rather strange. One of the hunters who survived the battle immediately started shouting that this guy was a hero. Probably no one around understands that two psychopaths had previously killed a man who came into their room. It is better not to tell anyone about this because unexpected problems may arise. To disappear from sight very quickly and unexpectedly in order to be free people for a while. While still in the hospital, they watched too many movies about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and decided to act as covertly as possible. When one of the association employees returned with the buns, he discovered that the heroes had already left the hospital grounds. A few minutes later, they were in the center of a bustling city, enjoying the fresh air of freedom. They feel great together, although everyone around them is suspicious of guys in such clothes. They ate a little with the spare money, and then went to lie down on the grass under the bridge where they had just recently destroyed the large kraken. The spirit of this monster still can't forgive the guys for what they did to him, but now it's impossible to fix anything. During his rest, Ronald noticed a very strange situation. He immediately woke up Archie to show what was happening around. There is an unknown car nearby with a small child tied up in it. It doesn't seem quite legal. Although the child does not look scared, this looks like a kidnapping for the purpose of extorting money. A famous billionaire's son has gone missing, and now the bandit is demanding a ransom. Otherwise, the child will die a cruel death. At first, the main bandit wanted to demand 50 million, but that was too small a figure. The previous bandits demanded much more, so the price needs to be raised. Even the kidnapped child said that in the past they demanded 100 million for him, so in order not to offend him, they will have to raise the ransom price. The main bandit got so angry that he said he would demand at least 500 million, otherwise he would tear the child to pieces. It is immediately obvious that we have two amateurs in front of us. A child has to teach them exactly how to engage in extortion. His behavior made the criminals very angry, and the situation began to escalate very quickly. The bandits were already ready to make a hole in this guy's head, although if he died, no one would get any money. It was at that moment that the car doors opened, and Ronald walked inside, as if he were going to his own home. Everyone around immediately fell silent. No one even tried to move. The world seemed to stop. The bandits understand perfectly well that they don't need extra witnesses. They'll have to get rid of extra eyes. In less than a second, Ronald was in mortal danger, only now it was all for real. He was already ready to accept his death with honor and dignity, but Archie was clearly against it. He intervened in time and inserted his hand to save his friend. It is immediately obvious that the system took him to a new level. Now the criminals have finally realized that everything they do is a very bad thing. It would be much better if they continued to sit at home and enjoy their retired life. The main bandit was quickly knocked out, and the driver of the car tried to escape and refused any claims. After this, the psychopaths approached the little boy and learned that his name was Billy. He was very surprised to meet these guys and quickly realized that they were real madmen. By this time, Archie was already hungry again. This fat pig wants to eat every 5 minutes, and it's starting to get boring. Billy overheard their conversation and said that he wanted to thank his saviors. He was ready to feed them at his own expense. This guy's personal security should be here in a few seconds, so I'll have to run away to get rid of the extra surveillance. This is what happens when a billionaire's child falls into the hands of extortionist bandits. A special operation was launched throughout the city to find the criminals and free the small child. The real bandits said they saw a boy who was kidnapped by two madmen from a mental hospital. They even said that they wanted to intervene, but were unable to overcome the guys who were acting strangely. The bandits pretended to be victims while trying to save the child, posing as heroes. Of course, no one paid attention to them, because the soldiers were interested in finding the child, not finding heroes. Meanwhile, the hunters were still trying to figure out what exactly happened near the city's central hospital. The surviving warrior told an incredible story about how two madmen defeated 7th-rank monsters. It was not easy to believe these tales, but there were no other witnesses left. The country needs heroes, so these madmen must be found and awarded on the main square of the city. First, you need to draw a composite sketch, so that you at least know who exactly you need to look for. The drawing is not of the best quality, but it is much better than nothing. Meanwhile, Archie and Ronald were feeling fine and were in no hurry to return to the mental hospital. They enjoyed their freedom and had a great time with their new friend Billy. The staff at the 5-star restaurant were scared and worried that these homeless people would not be able to pay for everything they ordered. Everyone around was scared when they saw guys in strange outfits, so it was difficult not to attract suspicion. Billy had never seen people so hungry. It seemed to him that he had met pigs from a parallel universe. Archie had just eaten 20 portions of shashlik and said he was waiting for the main course to be served. Only Ronald looked pleased and constantly thanked his new friend for the wonderful food. The waitresses had never seen anything like this before. Today they brought out a record number of dishes. This went on for hours on end, and it seemed like it would never end. It was soon decided to call the police and report that there were suspicious people in the restaurant. By that time, the friends had already decided to leave, and Billy paid for all the inconveniences. After this, the waitress told the police that there were no more problems, and there was nothing to worry about. Archie and Ronald have finally found a friend who is their age match. Although our main characters are quite grown up, they always behave like children. That's why they can feel comfortable and enjoy life with Billy. You don't have to worry about looking stupid next to this guy because they're all on the same level. Billy quickly got used to the different personalities of his new friends. He noted that Ronald is a very smiling and funny guy, but Archie, on the contrary, is very reserved and calm. Sometimes it's even scary. They decided to continue their walk, and at a completely unexpected moment, Archie noticed that a red dot had appeared on his forehead. Less than a second later, a shot was heard, and all the people gathered in the amusement park felt incredible fear. The most frightened of all was Ronald, who realized that his friend had just been shot by an unknown sniper. A normal person would never wake up from such an injury, but when it comes to Archie, doubts arise. Everyone knows that this guy was forced to go through incredible trials in order to become stronger. It was thanks to this life that he acquired the skill of an incredible system and can now do the impossible. The soldiers stormed the building to find and neutralize the people behind the kidnapping of the child. Billy struggled against the guards and tried to explain that these two guys were his saviors. No one listened to him at all. The soldiers were ordered to eliminate everyone, so Ronald also found himself under threat of death. Today he was already shot at, he escaped punishment, and now history has repeated itself again. Some unknown force intervened in time to save the long-haired psychopath. Probably everyone has already guessed that Archie woke up, restored his health, and prepared to fight. We've already seen what happens to monsters who try to destroy his best friend. Now it's time to see what happens to people who do the same. The soldiers thought they had incredible strength and power, but today they were faced with an unprecedented beast. This guy survived a fatal wound, which made every soldier's hands shake with fear. Billy intervened in time and said that he forbade shooting at his close friends who saved him from the hands of bandits. If they hadn't intervened in time, things would have ended much worse, and the soldiers must understand this. The problem now is not the armed soldiers. Archie has gone crazy and is now difficult to stop. He wants to take revenge and kill, so he needs a person who can influence him. Only one person in the world has this ability. This guy's name is Ronald, and he can do the impossible. Just his presence is enough for Archie to finally calm down and relax. The terrible situation, which should have ended in fiasco, quickly returned to normal. Due to the lost energy, Archie passed out again, which has been happening too often lately. It seems that his body cannot handle the transition to the system, and he needs to consume many more calories than before. Regular food doesn't help at all. You need to eat monsters that have abnormal mana reserves. Billy called for help and asked them to take his new friends with him. As he walked down the street, he noticed that these guys were currently wanted by the police, so they needed to be hidden very carefully. They escaped from a mental hospital and now the whole city is chasing them. Their fate is clearly not to be envied. More than 12 hours have passed since the attack on the hospital, but the two craftsmen are still missing. Panic breaks out at the association's headquarters as two madmen are still walking the streets of the city without a care. Soon Kira appeared in the office, extremely unhappy with what had happened. She said it was a huge mistake to air the horrific photo on TV. If anyone makes such a mistake again, she will personally tear that person into tiny pieces. The image of the special forces should not be damaged by children's drawings. It is so obvious that it is not even worth talking about. After a while, everyone finally calmed down and realized that it was better not to anger Kira, otherwise it would all end in tragedy. Then the pirate approached the hunters and decided to look at the photograph that had caused too much noise. He was shocked when he saw these guys again, although it seemed to him that the madmen had been dead for a long time. This morning there was also a call between Director Donald and the hospital's chief physician. Fred managed to survive despite serious injuries. Today he looks a little upset about what happened. Reconstruction work will be carried out in the near future, and a large number of bodies will also need to be found under the rubble. As strange as it may seem, something good happened out of this disaster. It seems that the two madmen have finally died and will never be a problem again. Donald and Fred don't even suspect that it's actually too early to rejoice. The worst is yet to come. After the call, an assistant came to the director and said that the bodies of patients from the Devil's Chamber had been brought to the hospital today. Donald was sure that these guys were dead, and their dead bodies were brought to the clinic for burial. The assistant reported that these guys were alive and now ready to start treatment again. For Donald, this was too cruel. After this, Donald immediately called Fred and said that he still wanted to buy a subscription for annual treatment. Fred didn't understand what this meant. The madmen were already dead, so such a request seemed strange. Nevertheless, he still decided to earn some money and sell this old grandfather an annual subscription. It's easy money for Fred, but that's only because he doesn't yet know that the devilish patients are still alive. Right now, the director of the psychiatric clinic will be talking to Billy and his assistant. It turned out that Archie and Ronald had been examined at a private hospital yesterday. After the analysis and the obtained indicators, it became clear that everything was fine with them, although there were some oddities. Archie has increased stem cell activity and Ronald has bone age discrepancy for a young person. Because of this, some doctors at the private hospital came to the conclusion that Ronald was at least 100 years old. There is not much data in the hospital archives. The director also tried to study this issue, but did not find any answers. When the director came to this job, Ronald was already here, as strange as it may sound. Apparently his body does not react to aging at all, unlike Director Donald, who has not looked like a prince on a white horse for a long time. When Billy and his assistant left for home, it became clear that a small performance had been staged in front of them. In fact, the director told a short story in which there was not an ounce of truth. All this looks extremely strange. The mysteries of the mental hospital are yet to be solved in the future. Meanwhile, the monsters are becoming stronger every day and are becoming more and more of a threat to the world. The Great Crow received notification from its lieutenants that their allies had been destroyed. Apparently, there is a gathering of monsters here now that are planning to attack people in the near future. Here you can find various monsters that have incredible potential and can pose a serious threat. They are all worried about what happened because several of their allies were brutally killed by unknown people. If you don't intervene in the situation in time, things could end very badly for the monsters. In order to stabilize the situation and continue evolution, the monsters must send their best warriors on a mission. Meanwhile, Archie had already been sleeping for the third day in a row. Lately, he had really turned into a pig. At that moment, the director entered their room, who was not very happy that these guys were still alive. He brought in employees who were paid double to modernize the problematic room. All these men were so frightened that they worked at maximum speed, and as soon as they finished, they immediately ran away. It looks like they're waiting for the special forces trainees Kira was talking about to arrive here. Until that moment, they hope to barricade the madmen in a room and not let them out anywhere. It all looks good, of course, but guys like Archie and Ronald will always find a way to get out. The inhabitants of the Devil's Room have no idea that the legendary pirate came to visit them last night. He announced that the new members of the Hunters Association would be arriving at this psychiatric hospital for training in the near future. The director still hopes to sell the rights to his most problematic patients. He would gladly give them to the association and forget all this as a bad dream. For now, reality is much more complicated. So he has to take care of the devilish patients and only dream of something better. After a few days, the interns finally arrived at the mental hospital to learn about the local customs. They will have to face unexpected dangers that they do not even suspect. These guys think it's going to be a cakewalk for them. Let's see how quickly they change their minds. Their main practice is to help the mentally ill for a month. Every young hunter thinks he will pass the test with ease, although the hospital director is not at all sure of this. Soon, Archie finally began to wake up after a long sleep. He had absorbed enough energy from the surrounding environment and had now increased the cultivation level of his body. Ronald was happy to see his brother and told him that interns had already arrived at the hospital. This means there is no need to stay locked up anymore. It's time to break out. There were loud bangs on the closed door, and the entire hospital fell silent in anticipation of something terrible. Meanwhile, the interns began to approach the director along with the clinic's patients. Each of them will be given their own patients to examine and observe. Some of these newcomers will clearly be unlucky and will have to face real devils in human form. By this time, Archie and Ronald had already gone outside and decided to join this little carnival. They thought there was some fun brewing and it might be fun. The director is already too old. Sometimes he has poor eyesight, so he loses concentration. When he finally realized that there was a monster next to him, the man almost had a heart attack. As children, little kids are afraid of monsters, and as adults, they begin to fear people like Ronald. This long-haired beauty just got his own intern. Her name is Barbara. The director immediately intervened in the conversation and told the girl that she had better run home and not look back. He warned that this patient might be too difficult, but Barbara was confident in her abilities and still wanted to take the risk. The director warned that this could end very badly, but now the responsibility is on her side. Meanwhile, Archie also met his new friend. This guy's name is Alex, and he is also a novice hunter. He just shook hands with his new patient, although the director clearly won't like it. Donald continued to shout and repeat that the hunters should change their minds. They need to find completely different patients with whom they will be able to establish contact much more easily. Apparently, youthful maximalism works in a completely different way. These guys can no longer be convinced. They are confident that they will become incredible hunters and want to prove it by working with the clinic's most dangerous patients. Alex even decided to challenge Archie in order to demonstrate his strength and show who is the boss here. Does this guy really think he can beat a man who eats 10 tons of food a day? He is in for a cruel disappointment because in a real fight he is no match for Archie. This guy went through hellish training with his friend, so now he is practically bulletproof. Meanwhile, the more experienced hunters were still in the backyard of the clinic. They had a great time, and some even managed to develop romantic relationships. Sometimes work can even help arrange a romantic date in beautiful weather. The hunters didn't even suspect that something unexpected could happen because it was just a hospital. In fact, they are in a mental hospital, and this must never be forgotten. There are things going on here that are better left unsaid because otherwise it will be difficult to sleep. Archie hit one of the interns so hard that the guy flew across the building and landed on the ground on the other side. Alex said that Zeus hit him, and now he doesn't want to become a professional hunter at all. Meanwhile, all the trainees who witnessed this scene were shocked and extremely scared. Everyone around froze in anticipation. Not a single one of the interns dared to try to protect their friend. Everyone realized that Archie was truly a madman of incredible power, and it was better not to mess with him. Only the hospital director asked this boar to finally shut up and never use force on this territory again. With his actions, he destroyed the self-esteem of future hunters, although it is even a little funny. Only Ronald supported his friend and said that all this was nothing more than a trifle, and tomorrow it would be possible to beat up some slug again. At this moment, the hunters, who had been looking for the two masters who had defeated the 7th-level monster for a long time, turned their attention to them. The hunters immediately stated that they wanted to get to know these guys better and even become friends a little. No one paid attention to the wounded Alex, who felt incredible pain in every part of his body. The hunters even developed their own theory to explain the behavior of the two masters. They believe that Archie and Ronald are professional killers who were deliberately sent to a mental hospital. They took acting classes in order to convince the hospital director that they were insane. After that, they secluded themselves from the world and quietly cultivated to increase their rank. It's always funny to hear stories like this. Now it's completely unclear which of these people is really inadequate. As soon as the director heard these conversations, he immediately came running to intervene in the dialogue. He said his favorite patients were incredibly talented and powerful. Donald confidently stated that he wanted the hunters to take them into their association and teach them special skills. For how to get rid of the annoying madmen instantly formed in his head. Archie and Ronald didn't fully understand what was going on, so they decided to stand aside and not interfere. Donald only pretended to love them and kept repeating that he considered them his sons. He said he would be happy to send them to the association so they could find a new home. Ronald even had tears in his eyes and said that he would never forget his beloved psychiatric hospital. Everyone around burst into tears. But I believe that deep down, Donald was laughing loudly and not hiding his happiness. The hunters from the association were also pleased, as they had long wanted to cooperate with these two masters. Everyone completely forgot about Alex, who continued to bleed internally, and now no one cares about this guy anymore. Young intern Barbara was a little upset as she realized that her patient would be leaving the hospital. Ronald asked her to calm down and said that it was not time to part yet. They could still practice a little. The director was clearly against this, but Barbara could not be stopped. She wanted to adopt the knowledge of an experienced master. Crazy Ronald promised her that an acupuncture session would help her unlock her potential and become a deity. Of course, Barbara trusted this guy and immediately lost consciousness from pain shock. Everyone immediately gathered around the girl to try to help her. It's hard to remember the last time Ronald finished a training session successfully. This guy is incorrigible. All this time, there were very few people near the mental hospital, and no one paid attention to what was happening in the tree. There was not a single attentive person who would notice the strange raven killer. He flew here with his assistant to carry out the boss's task and find those who destroyed their allies. By that time, the hospital director allowed the hunters to stay there for a month to complete their internship. After that, they will be able to return to the association and take the two madmen with them. This means that the director has only 1 month left to finally feel free. All this time, the hunters will observe the two masters and try to learn from their experience. They are interested in absolutely everything: what exactly the masters prefer to eat, how they train, and how much they sleep. Sometimes their training may seem a little strange because it looks more like a suicide attempt. In any case, we have to watch the devilish patience because that is exactly the order that Kira gave. Ronald said he was willing to conduct his training with the hunters to show them how to replenish their strength. These guys are probably ready to go through something like this, even though they have no choice. Within a few minutes, the 3 hunters had lost consciousness and looked like cold corpses of maggots. It all looked a little strange, but Ronald was confident that the next training session would go much better. This guy is too much like death to try to find common ground with him. The hunter, who had not yet completed the training, began to cry and beg for mercy. He promised that he would undergo an acupuncture session another time. Ronald is always ready to listen to another person's words, but no words will stop him from conducting a training session. All this time, 2 monsters of the 4th and 5th levels were watching his actions. Archie continued to cultivate in hopes of becoming even stronger, although without additional energy, it would be very difficult to achieve. Soon the shadow of a huge monster appeared in the recreation area, which frightened everyone. The clinic's patients have just recently recovered from the emotional trauma of being attacked by a huge monster. Now they will have to face unexpected circumstances again. The monsters didn't come here to play games. They have a clear goal: destruction, and they won't stop until they achieve the result. Ronald may be an easy target, as his skills are still questionable. He is lucky to have a wonderful friend. As long as Archie is still alive, Ronald does not have to worry about anything. The owner of the system will always come to the rescue in difficult times, even if he slept like a pig before. Even a huge bear won't be an obstacle because Archie has already reached the level where even bullets can't penetrate his head. The bear seemed very cute to the friends. Did they really decide to roast him again and have a barbecue? The bear had never heard anyone call him cute before. Up until that moment, he had only heard unflattering remarks about himself. He was constantly told that he was big and scary, and also smelly like a boar. This always caused the bear great pain, and memories of the terrible events of the past still do not leave his head. Archie called him his friend and said that the bear would be useful to them in the future. This owner of tiny paws immediately calmed down and turned into the cutest creature in the galaxy. Even Ronald couldn't help but admit that this little bear should become part of their big family. This brown bear has never been so happy. Before, his life was one big tragedy. When he got to the monsters, he was immediately warned that people consider big bears to be terrible and evil. The bear fully agreed with this theory because he had encountered people in the past. When he was very little, he was picked up on the street by a nice guy named Mickey. He decided to take this bear cub home because he thought it was very cute, affectionate, and fluffy. The bear cub was already ready to become part of this child's family and enjoy life in the coming years. A few hours later, the parents returned home, and the bear cub decided to play with them a little. Mickey was sure that everything would end happily, but life taught him a lesson. His parents were destroyed very quickly by this terrible demon. They had practically no chance. Mickey realized that he had to destroy this terrible monster with his own hands. He tried to deliver a crushing blow but missed and only injured the bear's eye. That day, he forever understood that you can't pick up strangers on the street, because it can end in tragedy. For the first time in many years, the bear heard that someone else thought his paws were cute and fluffy. He relaxed a little and thought that these guys could really be trusted. Less than a second later, the bear finally changed his mind when he realized what was going on. He was admitted to a mental hospital, which means he can say goodbye to his cute little hands. The devilish patients cut off his legs and said that these body parts would be incredibly juicy if fried in a frying pan. Another patient ran up to them and said that he was a professional chef who knew how to cook bear paws. He called it a French delicacy and said he would make a fine steak from these ingredients. At that moment, the bear screamed loudly. He finally realized that he had ended up in the devil's house, and now he couldn't get out of here. Archie has a great sense of when it's time to tame the monster and tear it into little pieces. This bear was unhappy that they were trying to eat him, although he was no different from a devil dog, a poisonous snake, or an octopus. If Tiger thinks he can go back to the cave and tell his boss everything that happened, he's making a big mistake. Only Raven has a chance to escape, although to do so, he will have to get away from here as quickly as possible. Tiger can also make a great snack if prepared properly. The experienced cook had already managed to put on his gear and asked his friends to light a fire. They could have a great barbecue if they teamed up and gutted these monsters. It seems that the team of animals in heaven is expecting a new addition. A bear cub and a tiger will soon rise to join them. The cooks who work at the local hospital have never seen anything so brutal. Today they witnessed a massacre that will forever go down in the history of Mental Hospital Number 9. The tiger has turned into a beautiful baguette that can be sliced for delicious sandwiches. All that remains is to put pieces of his tongue on this bread and spread it with butter, and the result will be a real delicacy. Very soon the tiger found himself in the sky and greeted his old friends. They can rest assured that they will soon be joined by a bear cub who is still alive. Today for lunch, patients at a psychiatric clinic tried unusual dishes that were not on the menu. The director tried to somehow influence the patients, but it must be admitted that no one listened to him at all. There was a real celebration in the canteen today. Probably even the Brazilian carnival couldn't compare to this fun. In such cases, all that remains is to lower your eyes and give the madmen a chance to have at least a little fun. Now we can finally remember about the hunters who came here to raise their level. They had just woken up from a tough training session conducted by Master Ronald. These guys were able to survive the acupuncture process and now feel incredibly energetic. Judging by their characteristics, they have become stronger and raised their levels thanks to training. It's really hard to believe, but Ronald really turned out to be an experienced master who knows how to conduct training. The hunters tested their skills and were convinced that they had gained incredible potential. After this, they decided to return to the association to tell about what happened in the forest. Kira immediately asked them to shut up and stated that urgent news had arrived an hour ago. The association's monitoring has detected the energy of 9th level monsters, and these monsters are currently located in the city center. The special squad of hunters must go in search of monsters in order to eliminate them before civilians are harmed. Kira showed where the last time abnormal energy activity was recorded. The situation cannot be allowed to get out of control, so the hunters must gather their strength and go on the mission with the utmost seriousness. Before they set off, these guys looked at each other and decided to tell the truth about what happened this morning. Kira just learned that her hunters have leveled up and are now at a high level of evolution. They said that they trained with an experienced master who had long ago achieved immortality and taught them how to become armored. The pirate listened to this whole story very attentively and could not believe his ears. He immediately remembered the two guys he met in the mental hospital. The pirate quickly realized that the hunters were training with these very madmen, and he immediately felt very ill. Apparently, these guys aren't going to listen to more experienced warriors. They are confident that Ronald and Archie are great friends from whom they can learn a lot. It seems like something strange is about to start, so before that, I suggest we get to know these young people a little. Here we have 4 hunters who want to become legends. Their names are Bob, Patrick, Lisa, and Jerry. They just received a notification that a pack of terrible monsters is approaching them. The special squad of hunters has been in various situations before, but it cannot be said that they are too experienced. Now is a great opportunity for them to show their best side, because there are high-ranking monsters opposite them. In order to survive this battle, we will have to unite and act as a real team. There are no immortal masters nearby who could organize an acupuncture session for monsters. If Archie and Ronald were here, this hellbird would turn into a delicious steak in a matter of seconds. Unfortunately, the madmen are now in a mental hospital, so hunters must rely on their own skills. Their protective barrier should withstand the first blow, but it won't last long. You will have to go out into the outside world and challenge the odds, even at the cost of your own life. In any case, the hunters are forced to detain the monsters so that the civilian population has time to get away from the danger zone. Bob was on the brink of life and death. Everyone around was sure that no one could help him. At this moment, there was a surge of abnormal activity, and several monsters lost their heads. A snow-white cat appeared on the battlefield and came here to clear the perimeter. The boss sent her to control the situation. It is worth immediately indicating that this cat is at the 9th level of development. Level 9 allows the monster to use its maximum intelligence, but will it help defeat the mighty Patrick? There's a clash of titans brewing here. All that's left to do is stock up on popcorn and enjoy the action. After 10 minutes of fiery battle, it became clear that the hunter simply could not withstand such pressure. They trained against the best Shaolin masters, but never faced this level of monsters. With all their might, these guys try to stick together, but the monsters do everything they can to separate them. Lisa used her last strength to get the clod of internal energy to pass it on to her friends. She is willing to sacrifice her life to allow the rest of the team to return home. She was soon joined by Jerry, who also gave away his divine pill. They sacrificed their precious energy to save Bob and Patrick. A second later, a portal opened, and transported the surviving hunters to a safe place. They will definitely meet in the next life, but in this universe, their story has come to an end. In their final moments, Jerry and Lisa found solace and satisfaction in the beauty of nature. They felt incredibly calm and didn't pay attention to any monsters that were nearby. It was the absolute acceptance of death, the moment when no monster would disturb the hunter's soul. All that was left was to turn on the self-destruct mode and blow up all these ruthless worms in this beautiful clearing. The Snow-White Cat witnessed the death of many of her brothers and sisters. At that moment, her heart shrank to the size of an atom. Meanwhile, Bob and Patrick found themselves in a safe location, several miles away from the deadly incident. They were confident that they had escaped the devil's touch and could now sleep peacefully. These guys only had to get to the city center, but another misfortune fell on their heads. The unexpected kick to the head turned out to be much more powerful than one could have expected. The hunters lost their balance and were unable to block this powerful blow. They hit the tree hard and tried to get up to look danger in the eye. Appeared before them, possessing incredible potential and hidden abilities. The cockroach is a national rank demon, and today he has come to take their souls to the realm of the dead. The hunters realized that now there was nowhere to run. If they were destined to die, they would have to do it with their heads held high. They decided to challenge their fate directly and attack that terrible monster. Finally, our story has received a fiery continuation. Now it will be really hot. Patrick is a master of wind, and after his recent evolution, he has gained additional skills that he will need today. Bob tries in every way to delay the enemy in order to give his friend the opportunity to act more aggressively. To do this, he needs to use force and create problems for the terrible cockroach in every possible way. While in college, Bob became famous for his fiery punch. He was called the Hulk for his incredible strength and ability to break trees with his fists. He was absolutely convinced that there was not a single living creature that could withstand his blow. Today he was convinced that this was not entirely true, because Cockroach not only blocked the attack, but also went on the counter-offensive. This means that Plan A didn't work, and now we have to rely on the Windmaster. At this moment, Patrick remembered his past. These memories should give him an additional incentive to live and suffer. Several years ago, he suffered a terrible grief. His beloved wife died while on duty. His wife was a hunter, but one terrible night she was unable to return home after a special operation. They left behind a son who took the separation hard and could not recover for a long time. He was constantly afraid because his father continued to work for the association and fight monsters every night. Patrick constantly had to reassure his child and remind him of his hidden skills. Many years ago, Patrick managed to harness the windy force, and since then he feels invincible. He promised that if any unforeseen circumstances ever happened to him, the wind would always come to his aid. The emergency is happening right now, which means it's time to call in a tornado. Bob can hardly move, but he knows he has to give his friend a little more time. That is why he intervened in the battle in time and tried with all his might to delay the enemy. Bob knew full well that this could be his last minute of life, but he still fought to increase the chances of a universal victory. His actions deserve applause. People like Bob should have statues in the center of every city. It took less than 30 seconds for this legendary hunter to literally lose his head. By this time, Patrick had completely mastered the wind energy and was ready to give his enemy the final battle. The terrible and incredibly scary cockroach must prepare for the most difficult moments of his life. Then strange events began to happen, which are not at all easy to describe. Patrick started the transformation process and completely blended into the environment. At the beginning of the battle, he spoke holy words, after which the wind became a brush in his hands, the earth turned into paper, and the blood became ink for writing the book of heaven. After the flash of light, life seemed to stop, but nothing special happened. The Snow-White Cat ran up to her king and began to tell him everything that happened, at which point he asked her to shut up. At that moment, the association's chief hunter learned that 2 madmen had received contracts to work as hunters. He couldn't believe that this happened during his shift. Pirate seemed very worried. He promised himself to cancel these contracts, and right at that moment, a frightened Kira ran into his office. She informed the pirate that the Holy Warriors squad had just disappeared from all radars. It soon became known that these warriors were completely destroyed during the battle with the monsters. Very soon, the pirate found himself at the scene of the crime and made no attempt to hide his emotions. He saw the wounded bodies and tears appeared in his eyes. He had not been so sad and morally broken for a long time. In any case, we must thank these warriors for holding back the monsters and giving the civilian population a little time to prepare for the coming battle. When the pirate said goodbye to the Windmaster, he accidentally activated some invisible sign. After that, various hieroglyphs began to appear around. It seems that in front of us is a sealed message from Master Tornado. This message tells you what happened, how many monsters are in the forest, who their boss is, and how to fight them. The pirate saw such technology for the first time. Before that, he had only heard about such capabilities in ancient books. The hieroglyphs began to spread throughout the city, and ordinary residents were surprised at what was happening. Now the young hunters must take over the responsibility of more experienced warriors and fight the wave of monsters in their place. Even the madmen from the mental hospital saw the secret messages, but it is unlikely that this will surprise them. It is also worth noting that the main message was addressed to a young man named Christopher. This boy is the child of the legendary Wind Warrior, and today he still cannot wait for his father to return home. Finally, Dad asked him to take care of himself, not to be afraid of difficulties, and to always smile when looking into the eyes of danger. The father promised that if a critical moment came, he would definitely say goodbye to his son, and he kept his promise. He asks Christopher to live honestly, happily, and prosperously, because his parents will now always be watching over him from heaven. If you say that at this moment tears did not appear in your eyes, I will not believe you. A few hours later, evening came, and an unusual incident occurred on the dark streets of the city. The crow that was watching the madmen returned to the base to tell the boss everything. She was caught by a large gorilla, who demanded that she tell the whole truth about what happened. Apparently there are also conflicts among the monsters. Not all are ready to follow the boss's instructions. Some monsters believe that they can be friends with people and even unite. Other monsters are absolutely convinced that humans are nothing more than food, and there is nothing to talk about with them. Conflicts between monsters are becoming more and more frequent every day. This cannot be avoided due to the constant growth of intelligence and evolution of monsters. Some of them turn into horrible creatures, while others, on the contrary, become more like humans. Meanwhile, the mental hospital is stable and it's always incredibly fun. This evening, Ronald discovered that he had lost his favorite watch and asked a friend to find it. They searched every corner of their room, but were unable to find the lost item. It was decided to go outside to breathe in the evening air and look around. While on an evening walk, Ronald noticed an approaching light. They barely managed to dodge, and noticed that there was a very unusual man on the motorcycle. It feels like they've landed on Planet of the Apes, where a gorilla biker is the norm. The system immediately discovered that this monster had a huge supply of energy and needed to be eaten. This is the very same gorilla that recently destroyed a crow flying to its boss. This gorilla's name is Gargamel, and it feels like he's on the human side. Out of the blue, a terrifying level 5 praying mantis approached him. Gargamel prepared for battle. He instantly approached his opponent and left him without a head with one blow. After a few seconds, the number of monsters increased several times, and new problems appeared. Gargamel was not at all afraid. He straightened his shoulders and demonstrated his confidence. After that, he activated the skills of a level 8 demon and showed what he was capable of. This guy has outstanding instincts, with the help of which he easily destroys his enemies. The two madmen were shocked by his behavior. For some reason, Gargamel protected people instead of trying to destroy them. After he defeated all the praying mantises, he said goodbye to his human friends and left. This monkey is kind of strange. That's what Ronald thought after what he saw. The next morning, a nervous conversation took place between Kira and the pirate at the association's headquarters. After investigating the scene, it became clear that the hunters had died after a battle with a national rank demon. This means that humanity will face an unprecedented threat, and something must be done urgently. If we don't consolidate, the whole country could disappear from the face of the earth. While the hunters are trying to find a way out of the current situation, the madmen continue to roam the city. They have no money at all, but these guys are always hungry. They decided to go to the nearest store and ask to sell them food for free. The saleswoman had never heard anything like it. People in strange clothes trying to rob her. She considered calling the police, but decided not to risk her safety. The friends took a carton of milk with them and brought it to their friend Jessica. They hoped to somehow thank the girl for helping them in the past. The next morning, Jessica opened the door and saw a strange gift in front of her. Her neighbor immediately noticed this and could not stay away. This cunning beetle realized that he could take advantage of the chance and take the milk for himself. He said that this parcel was addressed to him, so he takes it to his room. The fat slug quickly realized that the courier had gone to the wrong house, and so decided to deceive the naive Jessica. The sweet girl was left with nothing, and the bald worm got free milk. As soon as he entered his house, his head immediately began to split, as if a sniper had shot at him. Less than a second later, the fat man lost consciousness and fell down. This is what happens to people who neglect their conscience. Meanwhile, the head doctor of the local hospital was talking to Mr. Donald. He learned that the madmen were still alive and were now heading to his hospital. It was a huge blow for Fred. He is not sure that he will be able to survive such a catastrophe again. Archie and Ronald are too much trouble to be treated like normal people. Only Donald doesn't panic. This old man has been treating everything with indifference for a long time now. Fred immediately took control of the situation and ordered the immediate isolation of the madmen. He understands that if these guys are given even a little free time, they will destroy everything here. As they passed the central hall, they noticed a crowd of people. If you look closely, you can see a conflict between Jessica and the son of that same fat slug who lost consciousness. He stole milk and was immediately punished, but his son believes that Jessica is to blame. That's why he found the girl in the hospital and decided to publicly humiliate her. The fragile little blonde couldn't do anything about it, so Archie stood up for her. The whole family of the fat slug rebelled. They said that they would sue Jessica. Archie and Ronald immediately took their friend and said that they were not going to start a fight here. If the situation gets out of control, they will quickly show who is boss. The cheeky guy better remember that he's talking to psychopaths who love to eat living creatures. If he wants to get home safe and sound, he'd better apologize and never go near Jessica again. The girl was happy and thanked her friends for their help. She had just found out that it was they who brought the milk in order to somehow thank her for her help. Fred intervened in the conversation and said that it was high time for the patients to be given an enema. Right at that second, little Billy appeared at the hospital along with his security guards. He confidently stated that he came here to finance the hospital. Almost instantly, Fred forgot all his problems and ran to Billy to kneel down. When he heard talk about money, he immediately realized that he had to grab this chance with both hands. In fact, Billy came here to buy his friends out of slavery. He said that he missed them and would like to spend some time with them. After all the paperwork was completed, the boys were officially able to leave the hospital. On the street, Billy noticed a large gathering of hunters. This happens when a storm is coming and martial law is declared, so you have to be careful. That same evening, a strange rooster was spotted in a suburban area of the city. In fact, this is a monster who has been looking for easy money for a long time. Hunters are looking for this rooster everywhere, but he manages to cover his tracks skillfully. Apparently tonight he wants to feast on fresh human meat, and anyone can become his victim. In the evening, the two crazy friends were already at their friend's country villa. They had a great time and enjoyed the local amenities. Ronald and Archie had never been in such a rich house in their lives. Everything around sparkles and the smell of money is very distinct. The friends said they would sleep with Billy because otherwise there was no point in this friendship. Right now, two paupers can be seen next to this luxurious house. Before us are the same bandits who tried to kidnap Billy last time. Bespectacled Stephen and Edward still can't find themselves in this life, which is why they have to do dirty deeds. They climbed into the sewers to get into the house of the billionaire's son. This plan is quite interesting, but let's see how it will be implemented. As soon as the bandits emerged from the sewers, they immediately ran into security. Edward had to say that he came here solely to clean the sewers with his friend. It's not easy to believe in such fairy tales, but these guys can be used wisely. If they really are such big fans of cleaning drains, why not show a little mercy? While Edward and Stephen were cleaning the drains, Billy and his friends were enjoying life. One fine day, Archie disappeared somewhere, as if he had smelled the scent of approaching danger. This guy has a great sense of smell because there is a killer rooster near the house. Hunters still can't catch this monster, they do a terrible job. Meanwhile, a small and defenseless girl was returning home after training. She had already heard that there was a monster roaming the area, but she didn't understand how serious it was. The rooster smelled the sweet meat and tried to attack from behind at the most unexpected moment. He was already ready to feel the pleasant taste of her body, but at the last moment someone's hand grabbed him. This is where Archie came running. He sensed the danger in advance and came to the rescue. Sometimes this psychopath acts like a real hero, although he doesn't even realize it himself. He looked at the girl and said that this rooster was very cute, and he wanted to be friends with him. It all looked very strange because he had captured a monster that could kill an ordinary person in just a few seconds. In any case, the third-level rooster is now trapped with no way out. When morning came, the local bandits had finished cleaning the sewers. Billy and his security team decided to pay these guys compensation for their excellent work. Stephen and Edward were shocked by what had just happened as they were sure they would be torn apart. But instead, they received compensation. Once upon a time, Edward heard from his master that sooner or later his life would change for the better. Finally, the moment has come, and now Edward can become a professional drain cleaner. Ronald just woke up and immediately saw his best friend in front of him. Archie looked excited because he was holding the third-level demon he had caught last night. The monster was sure that he would quickly tear these guys to pieces and have a wonderful breakfast in this big house. He probably doesn't realize that to the madmen he looks like a cute little bird that needs to be befriended. Archie quickly fell in love with the pet and said he would make a wonderful dinner. We know exactly how these two psychopaths deal with monsters. This rooster will suffer the same fate. He was so scared that his face completely changed beyond recognition. Because of fear, the rooster even began to lay eggs, although this sounds absurd. Ronald is confident that this rooster can be used for good, and it is not even necessary to kill it. If he constantly lays tasty eggs, he will be of great use, so he should be kept alive. Within minutes, Billy's assistant was already preparing breakfast from the eggs of the demonic killer rooster. Never before had this monster felt so strange, but he even liked the smell of fried eggs. Doesn't this fool understand that people are going to eat his children now? The rooster was soon named Chuck and told that he had to lay 2 eggs daily, or he would be turned into steak. Meanwhile, very tense negotiations continued at the association's headquarters. The hunters are excited about the upcoming threat. They are trying in every way to repel the approaching storm. This will not be easy to do. Monsters evolve every day and are constantly becoming stronger. We'll have to call for support from other cities and warn the president about the approaching danger. The pirate thought for a while and then said that he would be back soon. A plan immediately arose in his head on how exactly he could prevent the danger and protect the local residents. By that time, Billy had already said goodbye to his friends, and they agreed to meet the following weekend. Archie and Ronald returned to the mental hospital to see their beloved Mr. Donald. Today, the director looks aggressive because he had to compensate for the losses of a store where his patients stole milk. These guys thought they had money in their accounts, but it was nothing more than a joke. The director explained that when Mom brought Archie here, she left some money, but it had long since run out. As for Ronald, he has no parents at all, so he doesn't even dream of free money. The boys suggested that the director calm down a bit and showed him their new friend. They said the rooster's name was Chuck and promised that there would be no problems with the monster. By that time, there was already a pirate near their chamber who came here to offer them a deal. When he saw the 3rd-level monster in front of him, he almost swallowed his tongue in surprise. He sensed the danger looming and immediately activated his fire palm skills. At this point, Archie immediately intervened in the conflict and said that Chuck was his close friend who should not be offended. Now they cooperate, and in exchange for the supply of eggs, they provide the rooster with complete safety. The pirate is not going to turn a blind eye to the existence of various monsters, because he swore to destroy all wild creatures from the other world. The hunter immediately demonstrated the fire dragon technique he learned in the Bupas Mountains. Archie was perfectly prepared for this turn of events and was not at all scared. With his usual coolness, he repelled all attacks and made the pirate look ridiculous. After an hour of fighting, the hunter had to admit that the rooster must remain alive, although he would have to be kept under close supervision. Chuck pretended to be scared and kept repeating that he didn't want to turn into a rotisserie chicken. Now it's time to cool down a bit and talk like real gentlemen. Archie handed the rooster into his friend's hands, and at that moment Chuck felt a shudder run through his entire body. He realized that the guy with long hair was an even more dangerous monster than the devil from the underworld. While Ronald offered the rooster some acupuncture, Archie and the hunter went outside to talk. The pirate acted as straightforwardly as possible and immediately said what he wanted and what exactly he needed. The world is in danger. Monsters are approaching at incredible speed to capture and destroy the entire planet. As strange as it may sound, the pirate wants 2 psychopaths to help him stop the disaster. A few hours later, he came to the director and told him about his desire to take 2 patients with him. He offered him a contract to transfer the rights to Archie and Ronald so that they could join the Hunters Association. Donald was incredibly happy because he understood that he would finally get rid of 2 madmen who would sooner or later definitely kill him. Although he pretended that he would miss them in reality, as soon as these guys left the hospital, a carnival would immediately begin here. The deal was officially completed, and now our main characters are entering a new era of their lives. They are about to finally leave the mental hospital and plunge into a world of danger and total injustice. In order to say goodbye to the local legends, absolutely all hospital employees came out into the street. The director kept repeating that he would miss you very much. It was immediately obvious that he was a natural actor. All the staff at the psychiatric hospital were crying, although no one realized that these were tears of happiness. The Sly Fox has handed over the rights to 2 of his hospital's most dangerous bandits and is now going to live a happy life. By that time, Ronald had already managed to conduct an acupuncture session with his new demonic friend. Chuck barely survived the ordeal, and he will remember training like this for a long time. Soon the demon and his friends found themselves in the main office of the Hunters Association. It is spacious, cozy, and fresh here. You can immediately feel the taste of technology and maximum discipline. Of course, the hunters immediately noticed that the newcomers had come here with the demon. People began to panic and demand that the monster be immediately torn apart before he passed on all the information to his boss. Poor Chuck was so nervous that he couldn't even hold back and took a dump right in front of everyone. The boss had to intervene and calm his young students. These guys needed to be explained that the rooster must not be touched. For now, he is allowed to stay with his owner, but in the future, he should definitely turn into a tasty dinner. Now it's time to officially register Archie and Ronald as association hunters. It usually takes no more than a few minutes. You just need to prepare all the necessary documents. The administrator was very surprised when she saw the monster in the arms of the newly minted hunter. Archie immediately said that he considered him his pet and would not allow anyone to hurt Chuck. The association has never seen demons referred to as pets before. These guys are seriously nuts. Local hunters even created a chat room where they began discussing the newcomers and their oddities. After registration, hunters went to test their abilities and current rank. Each of them will be under systematic observation in order to determine their strengths and weaknesses. Archie and Ronald were tested and found to be at level 0. This does not mean that they have no talents, because their characteristics are too different from ordinary people. These guys are too mysterious for technology to analyze their capabilities. They have already proven in the past that they can fight dangerous monsters, so the test doesn't really matter. After the check, Chuck received a personal collar with a GPS beacon so that he could always be tracked. The rooster had never felt so depressed. His mother warned him not to get involved with people, but he didn't listen to her. Now he will have to play the role of a house cat and walk on a leash like a soulless slave. Meanwhile, his owners will receive their first assignment and finally go to work as hunters. They must go out into the city streets to patrol dangerous areas and try to find monsters. There is nothing dangerous about this job, especially when you compare this task to life in a mental hospital. Finally, Ronald said that he had one very interesting proposal for the boss. He smiled, looked Pirate in the eyes, and said that they needed to get an acupuncture session to cure his other eye. The Pirate immediately refused. He did not intend to expose his body to danger again. This guy almost died during his last training session, so now he will never trust his body to Ronald. When he was alone in his office, he immediately called a special hunter named Ramon. Ramon is a special forces soldier who carries out high-priority missions for the elite. The association's chief hunter has summoned him for a reason. He wants to entrust him with a special task. Ramon will have to keep an eye on 2 new recruits who will soon be heading out on their first mission in the city. They will need to be monitored and looked for abnormal activity, but Ramon must be very careful. The boss even advised him to write a will in advance, because all this could end very badly. Meanwhile, Archie and Ronald were preparing for their first task and enjoying the work of art. The rooster creates new eggs every day. It seems that he has already gotten used to his role and even enjoys the process. He has lost his freedom, and now he has to admit that it is much better than being eaten like the previous monsters. The guys are going to have breakfast, and then head into the city to search for particularly dangerous creatures. Ramon entered their room and immediately began looking around to analyze the situation. Archie sensed the approach of an unknown spirit and warned his friend about it. The Special Forces hunter was very surprised, because no one had ever found him in invisible mode. This situation clearly illustrates how talented Archie is. He notices the presence of even invisible people. After a delicious breakfast, the guys got ready to go out into the city and show what they were capable of. At this point, they were discovered by Alex, who tried to deal a crushing blow and show the newcomers that they were not welcome here. It was only when he got closer that he noticed that in front of him were the same guys who had destroyed the 7th-level demons in the hospital. He immediately stopped and realized that he had just about made the biggest mistake of his life. Alex is actually a fan of these guys, despite everything that happened in the past. Archie already knocked him out during his internship, so Alex better not repeat his past mistakes. Within a few minutes, the madmen were in the city and attracted the special attention of passers-by. It's not every day you see 2 guys walking around town with their rooster. It does look a bit weird. The hunters immediately got down to business and began to help people in need, providing small assistance. First, they walked the grandmother across the road, and then they helped the blind boy find his apartment. They didn't find a single monster the entire day, even though that was the task the boss had given them. Tired but not broken, they decided to calmly return home to at least get some rest. Throughout the day, they were watched very closely by Ramon, who remained in invisible mode. He was constantly communicating with other hunters in the general chat and discussing the oddities of these new guys. During the return trip home, Chuck the rooster began to behave very strangely. He began to scream and twitch like a slaughtered pig. This guy clearly sensed the approaching danger and warned his friends about it. Without waiting for their reaction, he ran in an unknown direction and pulled Archie along with him. This guy knows what he's doing because there's fighting going on in the next block. The hunters encountered the monster and are trying to eliminate the threat very quickly. The rookie squad had been given too many assignments lately, and they weren't ready for it. More experienced warriors died during the battle with the national rank demon. Now the newbies have to take charge, but their level is too low compared to the monsters. The situation is constantly heating up. With the help of evolution, monsters have mastered new skills and have even learned to use magical techniques. The 5th level Electric King came here to show his disrespect to the hunters. He had just defeated 4 warriors on his own, and was now ready to finish the battle and defeat their captain. The rooster sensed this threat and rushed over to talk to the Electric King. Chuck had long since hatched a plan in his head. He found himself in the enemy's lair and turned into a full-fledged spy. This rooster is going to get all the information he needs and then destroy the human association from within. He wants to become a monster hero and won't let anyone stop his plan. If the other monsters want to be heroes, they have to step aside and let him finish what he started. This is why Chuck is so aggressive towards his brothers and sisters. He wants to become famous too much, and will not allow anyone to take away his rays of glory. By this time, Ronald and Archie had found themselves on the battlefield and noticed that there was a wonderful snack in front of them. They had already eaten dinner, but that didn't mean they couldn't destroy another monster to get a little snack. Archie has never been afraid of electricity. On the contrary, this guy enjoys being slightly tickled by an electric wave. At such moments, he doesn't even feel pain, as if this guy was born to go through difficulties. One of the hunters quickly lost consciousness, while Archie didn't even blink an eye. His skills really work. Now it remains to be seen how strong the Electric King is. This monster called himself the best of the best, but as a result, he lost consciousness after only 5 minutes of fighting. This means that psychopaths will indulge in fish delicacies before going to bed tonight. Chuck warned his brother not to mess with him, but the Electro King didn't listen. Ramon watched every minute of the battle carefully, and he still can't get over the shock. He felt like he was watching newcomers, and now he's not at all sure that Archie and Ronald are human. Archie has been consuming too few calories lately, and has been expending a lot of energy. He needs to make up for the deficiency, and to do this he will have to prepare a delicious fish broth. Chuck had already heard legends about his master's love for killing demons and cooking them into delicious dishes. At first he didn't believe in all these fairy tales, but now he was personally convinced that it was true. Other hunters smelled the room during the night as if it were fried meat. At first no one understood anything, because the local warriors were not used to someone eating like a pig at night. Meanwhile, Archie and Ronald were enjoying their second dinner and were already dreaming about how they would prepare future dishes. These guys even offered Chuck some demon meat to try, as if that was nothing strange. The rooster was shocked. He was offered to eat his own brother. On the other hand, if he refuses, he might also end up being dinner for these guys in the future. That's why Chuck agreed, and a few seconds later he tasted demon for the first time in his life. He was shocked because it turned out to be incredibly tasty. Perhaps now he will change his outlook on life. I wouldn't be surprised if Chuck turns into a monster who eats demons along with his new friends. Within a few minutes, he was stuffed like a pig and dreaming of preparing a new dish. This guy got so excited that he started to bother Ronald. It was decided to calm him down a little so that he could relax and rest. Chuck was brutally knocked out. He needs to think about his behavior and not anger his owner anymore. When he woke up, he tried to understand where he was and what had happened to him. Chuck was shocked because he realized that Ronald had performed another acupuncture session while he was unconscious. The monsters watching him from the sky must be happy that this traitor got at least a little of what he deserved. The monsters will be very surprised to learn that thanks to this training, the rooster has increased his energy level. All these events were observed by a shocked Ramon, who refused to believe his eyes. The next morning, he went to meet his boss to tell him everything that had happened. The pirate always guessed that he was dealing with unusual people who could not be compared with anyone. Now he has proof that Ronald and Archie can only be compared to monsters from the abyss. However, he has no choice but to trust these guys and hope that they will help stop the disaster. Of course, they can create even more problems, but Pirate hopes that everything will work out. The next morning, the crazy friends went out to patrol the city streets again. At the same time, an incident occurred in the local park that is important for our story. An ordinary person suffered because of some unknown creature. He was sure that this was an ordinary pig in front of him, but it seemed that this was a monster of royal blood, which was better not to joke with. The guy called his friends for help and asked them to slaughter the pig and make shashlik out of it. The 5th level demon immediately activated his skills and showed that the kebab today would be made from human meat. With the help of magical influence, he quickly eliminated any threat. Archie immediately sensed the devilish activity and hurried to the central park. Within a few minutes, he was on site and saw what had happened. Meanwhile, the royal pig hid in the water when she sensed danger approaching. Chuck had already developed a love for demon meat yesterday, so he asked his friends to repeat their favorite ritual. As the evening wore on, people walking in the park could smell the freshly cooked meat. It was a rich and sweet taste that attracted not only people but all living creatures. 2 madmen were enjoying a barbecue, but they were so greedy that they weren't even going to share it with their rooster. Within minutes, Chuck was so offended that the owners barely survived. Ronald immediately took the opportunity and decided to start an acupuncture session to help his friend. Chuck had been waiting for a long time for the opportunity to destroy these guys and destroy the association from within. Now he has finally found the courage to do it in the most brutal and uncompromising way possible. The terrible rooster wants to tear Ronald apart and then move on to the main course, Archie. His plan quickly failed because Ronald sensed danger and let the rooster eat the pig's nose. Chuck clearly didn't expect this turn of events. He was being forced to eat his brothers and sisters again. Gradually, he turns into Hannibal, but the most interesting thing is that he even likes it. The demon meat immediately fills the rooster with incredible energy, although his brothers and sisters clearly do not approve of this. After Chuck tried a piece of pork, he immediately demanded more and gradually began to turn into a wild boar. Then he passed out from pleasure just like his master Archie. Ronald had the opportunity to have another acupuncture session. Today is clearly his lucky day. These exercises often make people disabled, but acupuncture, on the contrary, helps the rooster. He felt much better and said that he would never think of hurting Ronald and Archie again. With each new day, he feels better and better, his energy fills his muscles, and his skills are constantly growing. All this time, he is being watched by dead demons who call Chuck a traitor. These monsters dream of revenge, but their problem is that they will never appear on Earth again. Unfortunately, they were mercilessly eaten by the devilish killers. Ronald finished eating all the meat and now decided to rest a little with his friends. This guy is even more mysterious than Archie because almost nothing is known about him. He is cheerful and carefree, but one gets the feeling that there is some kind of universal mystery hidden in his heart. Shocked, Ramon continued to follow these guys day and night. He thought that nothing would surprise him in this life, but Archie and Ronald made him reconsider his views on life. It was difficult for him to explain to his boss what he saw and how it all happened. He said that these guys deserve respect in any case and can be considered professional hunters. Ramon is absolutely convinced that the Devil Friends should be included in the association's warrior rankings. They must earn points and receive rewards for the demons they destroy. The boss had no choice but to agree, although he clearly had no intention of rewarding the lunatics from the mental hospital. Ramon had been following these guys for so long that he had become a personal fan of theirs. Now he wants to continue to monitor their actions and constantly puts pressure on management to get Archie and Ronald promoted. Within a few hours, a new team appeared in the association's official ranking. These guys were called the Devil's Friends, and now you can watch their results online. Rooster Chuck was also included in the ranking. Thanks to eating monsters, he increased his rank and became even more dangerous. Now, when these guys walk around the association building, they constantly catch a lot of glances. Everyone pays attention to them and constantly discusses them in personal correspondence. Hunters are very interested in the rooster, which becomes stronger and more powerful every day. Some see this as a threat, while others believe that it benefits the association. In any case, no one wants to mess with these guys, although at times they look like angels. Every evening, Archie has an acupuncture session and is gradually increasing his level. The system continues to help this guy progress, but the process is not fast. The next morning, the devilish team set out on another mission. They must continue to find monsters and destroy them instantly. This time, they encountered a level 6 mad turtle that was located in the local market. Rumor has it that this monster is a member of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles team. In any case, it must be destroyed immediately before the monster creates any additional problems. The kids haven't had breakfast yet today, which means they have too many recipes popping into their heads. Within a few hours, the Ninja Turtle had turned into a wonderful turtle broth. It's funny to see how even Chuck has turned into a demon food lover. Previously, he looked at it with disgust, but now he begs the owner to let him try at least a little of this delicious dish. He is not at all embarrassed by the fact that more and more of his brothers and sisters appear in heaven every day. He had long since forgotten his main goal and was now completely submissive to human nature. He only has to taste a little bit of demon meat, and he feels his body fill with seething energy. Every part of his body becomes stronger. At such moments, he falls to the ground and feels ecstasy. Sometimes he behaves too strangely and makes his owners a little nervous. Today, Archie even suggested castrating this guy so he wouldn't cause any more problems. As soon as the demon spirits heard that the rooster was being proposed to be castrated, they immediately began to support this decision. They want Chuck to finally answer for all his sins, but the rooster clearly doesn't like it. It was only by some luck that this guy escaped such a cruel punishment. He is still a man, although now he needs some time to recover from another training session. Ronald failed the castration process and greatly upset all the demons in heaven. After a short rest, it was decided to go to the local terrarium. At first glance, it seems that there are ordinary fish here, but this is just an illusion. In fact, we are faced with terrible monsters that can attack at any moment. Any normal person would run and not look back, but the Devil's crew thinks monsters are cute. They came here to quench their thirst again, which means that history is repeating itself again. The spirits of the monsters in the heavens immediately realized that they would have a large addition. Today is a black day for the terrarium owner. It will not be easy for him to survive the catastrophe. The cleaning lady just came to see him to tell him some terrible news. The owner found out that almost all the fish in the aquarium were mercilessly killed by some psychopaths. The fish really turned into a wonderful dish that will not be easy to eat. And just recently these fish swam and delighted children, but now no one can help them. The devilish team ate their fill very quickly and decided to rest a little. Ramon watched their actions every second and had long since ceased to be surprised. He realized that these guys were crazy and that you could expect absolutely anything from them. There are too many fish in the sky, now the local demons will not be bored at all. When it was time to walk around town, Chuck thought for the first time about what he had been doing lately. His life changed very quickly and he realized that by eating monsters he was constantly becoming stronger. His energy grows, the number of skills increases, and the speed of regeneration also progresses. At the same time, he is embarrassed by the fact that he will be ashamed to look into the eyes of his brothers and sisters. Perhaps other demons consider him a terrible creature and will definitely open hunting season on him. Chuck doesn't worry too much about this because he is always around his new friends. He continues to work with people and dreams of becoming the strongest rooster in the entire galaxy. He had just come across a cage of demonic birds that looked at him as if he were an enemy. All the demons have already heard the legend about the rooster that eats monsters, so no one trusts Chuck anymore. He will have to strain his mind and activate the energy field of the fire rooster. With the help of his recent evolution, he was able to quickly deal with these monsters and showed who was the boss here. Of course, he still feels bad about eating his brothers, but he can't help himself because it's so delicious. Now he has a new life. He has to carry eggs and constantly kill demons. This could be called full-fledged slavery, but on the other hand, Chuck received the power that he could only dream of before. He should not be ashamed of his actions, even if all family members despise him. By this time, Ramon decided to take a little break and see his boss. He announced that the pirate would have to pay the devilish crew a substantial reward. In a short period of time, these guys destroyed a huge number of monsters. The association pays its hunters generously for success, so the Devil's team is bound to receive more than $100,000. The pirate said that he would never believe these tales, but Ramon had proof. It looks like the association will have to fork out and pay whatever it takes. During this tense conversation, the impulsive Kira entered the room. Sometimes it seems like she is always in a bad mood, which is why this woman is so feared. Ramon immediately left the office and left the bosses to talk alone. The general staff has approved the deployment of national-level reinforcements, but they have one condition. The pirate was clearly against these conditions because he was asked to go to the capital and personally tell about what was happening with the monsters. While he's away, chaos could break out in the city, which is why he doesn't like the idea. A conflict immediately arose between the two experienced hunters. Kira is completely supportive of the ministry and wants the pirate to go to the capital. In such situations, this woman turns into a monster. Her eyes become bloodshot, and her breath turns into dragon flame. The conversation suddenly stopped as an alarm sounded throughout the building. Anomalous activity has just been detected. A high-level monster has appeared somewhere nearby. Everyone prepared for battle, and did not even immediately realize that this monster was the rooster Chuck. After eating another monster, the rooster evolved again and became many times more powerful than before. The association's chief hunter decided to personally go to the first floor to make sure that this was not a joke. Everyone around was shocked and did not understand whether this was really the same rooster. A week ago, he was at the 3rd level of cultivation, and now this guy has reached the 8th rank. All of his indicators have increased significantly in a short period of time. Such situations are called anomalous because nothing like this has happened before. Archie said all this was possible thanks to intense training and a session of acupuncture. Now this rooster not only knows how to destroy rivals, but also lays eggs with a high protein content. Chuck felt humiliated. Tears appeared in his eyes, but he held himself back with all his might. This guy still dreams of becoming a legend, so he has to be patient. He wants to become the strongest monster in the galaxy, even if it means going through an ocean of humiliation. However, one should not think that this monster is completely unlucky. He is loved, fed, and hugged constantly, which is why his life is better than any of us. Local hunters immediately fell in love with this cute monster and became his fans. Chuck used to be feared by everyone around him, but now he is gradually turning into a local superstar. As soon as he appears on a live broadcast on Instagram, the views immediately skyrocket. The pirate came to personally verify that this rooster was not an enemy spy. He looked closely at the monster and said that if he turned out to be a traitor, Archie would regret it. When the situation calmed down a bit, Ronald offered to help again. He said he was willing to perform surgery on his boss's eye and do it absolutely free of charge. The pirate immediately became furious. His screams made the blood boil in the veins. He won't let anyone touch his eye again because he knows what these psychopaths are capable of. Doesn't he understand that these guys have changed and now they've turned into sweet little bunnies? He should be more sensible with them, because people change over time. The conversation about the next therapy session ended, and an unexpected guest appeared in the association. This man's name is Charles. He works in the Capitals department and is also Kira's uncle. When people like him come to the association, it can only mean one thing: a test. Recently, rumors have been circulating throughout the country that 2 psychopaths have captured a demon and have quickly gained a large number of points in the rankings. All this arouses great suspicion, so Charles comes to conduct a thorough check. He is sure that there was some falsification involved, and most likely, the pirate was involved. The tension grew with every second. Any careless word could end in disaster. It seemed like a bomb was about to explode, but then Charles smiled and said he understood everything. It looked a little strange, and Pirate didn't understand what he was hinting at. It turned out that everyone in the department had figured out that the 2 psychopaths were Pirate's nephews. That's why he took them into his team and immediately assigned the newcomers important missions. No one is going to judge Pirate. He is promoting the younger generation, and that is great. Archie and Ronald did not tell Charles the truth. They decided there was no point. The pirate also decided to pretend that these were really his nephews, because otherwise he would have had a lot of explaining to do. Now it's time to get to know each other better and discuss pressing issues. Now try to guess what exactly Ronald had in mind when he saw a new person in the association. Of course, he suggested an acupuncture session and swore that it was absolutely safe. The problem is that he uses sewing needles, which is probably confusing to anyone who encounters this workout. Ronald promised that there was nothing to worry about, because his patients had not died for a long time. At first, Charles was skeptical about it, but then gradually he began to feel the effect. The pirate smoked nervously and tried not to interfere. He had already mentally said goodbye to his friend. Halfway through the session, Charles felt a lightness throughout his body, and as if he were somewhere beyond reality. Soon he completely lost consciousness, although this is not surprising. The pirate asked the devil friends to go to their room and rest a little. In the meantime, he must call an ambulance to provide support to the wounded Charles. When everyone around him had left, the pirate's face immediately changed, and he began to look like a villain from a horror movie. Charles was still unconscious, so he did not resist when he was stripped naked. In just a few minutes, he was left completely naked. It seems that now we will witness some kind of perversion. The pirate pulled out a long, hard object from his pocket and then pointed it towards Charles. He passed this object over the hunter's entire body, and after that, he experienced total pleasure. Charles woke up a few hours later feeling slightly dizzy and nauseous. There was no one around except the pirate. The atmosphere was quiet and calm. The association's chief hunter pretended to call the hospital to get an ambulance for his friend. Charles said he didn't need help. The acupuncture session had cured all his old ailments. He felt much better, but then noticed a slight discomfort. He asked his friend to turn away so that he could adjust his pants. For perhaps the first time in his life, Charles realized that he had put his pants on backwards, although this couldn't be true. He immediately realized what had happened here. The bald pervert had taken advantage of his condition for his dirty deeds. Charles immediately lost his temper and started shouting at the entire Hunters Association. He was impossible to contain. He accused the pirate of perversion and said that he would now punish him cruelly. The special operation failed. The pirate was exposed, and now he needs to defend himself with magical skills. Even the Golden Dragon's technique was not enough to repel this attack. A little later, Kira appeared in the room and tried to understand what was going on here. She saw her uncle and was very scared because he had the same hot temper. Charles immediately warned Kira that she was now forbidden to communicate with the man called the pirate. He's a dirty pervert who is not worthy of touching a holy woman. The pirate immediately tried to resolve the conflict and said that there was a misunderstanding. He scanned Charles without his consent, but that doesn't absolve him of responsibility. I had to promise that next time the pirate would put his pants on correctly. As soon as Charles heard that this would happen again next time, he almost exploded like an atomic warhead. The situation had reached its limit, so the pirate realized that he needed to run away immediately. When he passed by Kira, he managed to discuss with her everything that happened. It turned out that she was aware of his plans, and even advised him to scan Charles. After that, she reminded him that the pirate had to be in the capital in 2 days, so she would not detain him any longer. Charles didn't hear all this quiet conversation, but he warned his niece never to communicate with this bald pervert again. He then told her that the one-eyed pirate had brought his 2 nephews to the association office. Rumor has it that these newcomers are his illegitimate children, so they definitely need to be fired. Kira was forced to read an investigation about 2 devil hunters. She found out that these guys were behaving very strangely, but at the same time they were following all the boss's orders. It was decided not to fire them from the association for now. They may still be useful. A little later, the assistant reported that all the newcomers who had been training at the psychiatric hospital had failed the task. Every newcomer faced insurmountable difficulties. Working with psychopaths had a negative impact on them. The children simply couldn't handle the pressure. Some of them went completely crazy, and some refused to work as hunters. Now the association must think twice before sending children on internships in a psychiatric hospital. We have completely forgotten about the existence of monsters that evolve quickly. Recently, these monsters became aware that their brothers and sisters continue to disappear in the city center. The boss began to worry, because at this rate he would lose a large part of his army. He ordered his assistant, a snow-white cat, to take care of this matter. We need to send the best warriors to stop the human hunters and fully form an army of monsters. Most likely people are being helped by a traitor among the demons, probably the gorilla Gargamel. He ordered to destroy this gorilla and continue preparations for the final battle. Outside the city there is an abandoned factory where no one has lived for a long time. Gargamel hides, who in the past has already helped hunters destroy monsters. He just had unexpected guests visiting him on orders from the main boss. They came to destroy the gorilla and rid the people of the informant. These guys are overestimating their chances, because they are facing a ferocious King Kong. When it comes to pushing his limits, Gargamel is always ready to put on a show. He had already reached a high rank long ago, but then decided to refuse to cooperate with the demons. This monster believes that you need to be friends with people, because this is the only way to prosper in this world. He is not afraid to challenge his brothers and sisters because he respects his personal ideals. Blood wolves are the king of the forest territories, but such monsters have never encountered gorillas. Now many people are talking about whether 100 people will be able to defeat a gorilla. The answer is unknown, but the monsters clearly cannot defeat the ferocious King Kong. There is a devilish team in the center of the city right now. These guys are on missions and looking for monsters. Chuck just sensed danger and got ready for battle. Thanks to his internal radar, he understands where demonic energy is approaching from. Within a few minutes, he had led his friends to an abandoned factory outside the city. There's some crazy carnage going on there right now that's best left unseen. Gargamel has serious problems, there are too many rivals. The mantis supported his wolf friend and began to increase the pressure on the gorilla. Chuck decided to intervene in the battle. He hadn't shown what his wings were capable of for a long time. His appearance distracted Mantis, and Gargamel was given the opportunity to get out of a difficult situation. A second later, he crushed the mantis's skull with his powerful hand, as if it were an ordinary watermelon. Gargamel immediately thanked his new friend for his help. Without the rooster's support, it would have been too difficult for him to cope with all these monsters. After meeting, the gorilla said that she had too many things to do outside the city. It is immediately obvious that Gargamel is a very positive and sweet character. Such a monster definitely cannot be eaten, because it will clearly be useful in the future battle against demons. At first, the rooster was sure that he was helping his monster friend, but then he finally realized what had happened here. It was only after a few minutes that Chuck realized that he was helping a traitor. After that, he tried to cure Mantis, but this monster had long since lost its head. Archie and Ronald quickly took advantage of the moment and roasted the dead monsters over a fire. For them, it was a great opportunity to get lunch without any extra effort. Chuck looked extremely upset and thought about at least burying the mantis. As soon as he dug the hole, he immediately discovered that his mouth was watering. This rooster is too used to enjoying the devil's meat, so now he can't resist this pleasure. He hopes that no one will think badly of him if he eats his dead brothers. Within a few seconds, the rooster and his friends were enjoying the roast wolf. All the dead demons are constantly cursing this guy and wishing the worst for him. Very soon the dinner was over. It was time to get some sleep and forget about all the troubles. The abandoned factory was very quiet and cozy, a great place for a picnic. Our main characters had no idea that a special rapid response team was following them all this time. When the hunters arrived at the crime scene, they were shocked by what happened there. In front of them was a pile of monster skeletons, huge pools of blood, and a mantis with its head torn off. Also at the scene of the incident, a very interesting drawing was found. This drawing was made by a gorilla who disappeared into thin air. Right now, Gargamel has already managed to reach the neighboring area of the city. He remained undetected and was in extreme pain after his battle with the poisonous mantis. Very often people forget to close sewer hatches, and this leads to such situations. Inattentive Gargamel fell into the sewer. He found himself in a very damp and smelly place. This is where friends Steven and Edward have been hanging out a lot lately. These guys realized that cleaning sewers could bring in big money, so they changed their profession. As they got closer to the green gorilla, a plan immediately came into their heads. A gorilla like this can be used as an artist. If you organize a circus, then you can earn a lot of money from this. The young businessmen immediately realized that they had to grab this opportunity with both hands. By that time, the association had learned what had happened at the abandoned factory, and the rooster was even accused of eating monsters. People were unhappy with the behavior of the newcomers. Apparently, it is not customary in the association to eat criminals. Now the devil team was looked upon as outcasts who had no place in the association. When they met, Kira told them that she was very unhappy with their work. Each of them will be placed in prison until the incident is investigated. We had to take the rooster away from the hunters, because this monster should sit in a separate cage. Kira ordered her assistant to conduct a psychological and intellectual test. If newcomers fail this test, they are not allowed to leave the prison. By that time, the pirate had already managed to collect all his things for the trip to the capital. Kira is very unhappy with this guy, because it was he who brought two psychopaths here who eat monsters. When they met, she didn't show her emotions. They only talked about work. The only one who showed displeasure was Charles, who still dislikes the bald pervert. Finally, the pirate said that he was trying to return home as quickly as possible. While he is away from the city, Kira must take responsibility and protect the civilians. Now all hope lies with her, because there are no more high-ranking hunters here. To make Kira feel supported, Pirate gave her one of the fire dragons he controls. After this, he calmly said goodbye and said that they had to stick together to defeat the enemy. Very soon, rumors about the incident at the plant reached the monster's lair. The Snow White Cat told the boss that the assassination squad had been completely destroyed. The boss was not at all surprised. With a cold expression on his face, he said that he had known about this for a long time. It turns out that the main monster has an ally among humans. A rat has appeared in the association, which tells the demons everything that happens there. That is why the monsters decided to prepare an offensive right now. All this is connected with the fact that the main hunter left the city, and now people are in too open a position. In the city center, civilians were unaware of the approaching danger. Everyone thought that it was an ordinary peaceful day that would not end with anything special. As if with a snap of the fingers, everything changed. The cute dogs turned into demons from the other world. It's hard to find a plot like this even in horror films. The events developed too quickly. People didn't even have time to be afraid. Everyone was just trying to survive and running in different directions. Level 3. Fire dogs can be a serious threat to an unprepared person. The association already knows about the monster attack. Kira understood that without the pirate, something terrible could happen here, but she had no idea that the attack would be so premature. All this time, the hunters were sure that the monster still needed time to gather a full-fledged army. Now it has become clear that this is not at all the case. The monsters learned about the pirate's absence and immediately decided to attack. This suggests that there is definitely a traitor among the members of the association. While Kira searches for the vile rat among her friends, civilians try to survive. Here you can also find ordinary pets that do not want to get involved with demonic power. Amidst the chaos, you can spot a small puppy that seems too cozy to be a monster. In fact, this is the real devil hiding in sheep's clothing. This dog has been hiding his skills for a long time so as not to frighten his beloved owner. As soon as he realized that his mistress was in danger and tears appeared in her eyes, he immediately showed his essence. This monster has long since gone over to the side of people. He took an example from Gargamel and is not going to retreat.